First of all, apologies for a slightly delayed start. We're still waiting for the monitoring officer, but we've given her some time, so we're going to start and hopefully she'll arrive shortly. So welcome to this Police, Fire and Crime panel meeting. Good to see you all. We'll start with apologies for non-attendance.
Through you, Chair, we have apologies for non-attendance from Councillor Fiona Baker. Councillor Lunn was due to be substituting for her, but has unfortunately had to give his apologies too, and also apologies for non-attendance from Miss Woodhouse.
Brilliant, thank you. So item 2, do we have notifications, requests from members of the public to address the meeting?
Yes, through you, Chair, we have 2 requests to address the meeting on item 9, the Police, Fire and Crime Plan delivery update. That is from Mr Craig Blacker and from Councillor Wendy Randall of West Northampton Council.
Brilliant, thank you. So moving to item 3, declarations of interest. Do any members wish to declare any disposable pecuniary interest or non-statutory disclosable interests on items on the agenda that haven't already been listed in their register of interests? That's a no. Okay, so item 4, Chair's announcements. In the last panel meeting, we agreed to write to the Minister for Crime, Policing and Fire to raise the need for greater clarity about how panels, statutory confirmation hearings should function, and how they should apply to interim appointments. As you'll all have seen, the Minister's reply was circulated, and the clarity around Chief Constable and Chief Fire Officer appointments, but he did not refer to the OPFCC's Chief Executive, Chief Finance Officer's thinking. So we're going to write once more to the Minister. I think that's the right thing to do.
Great.
Perfect. Then Councillor Mercer kindly attended the annual conference of the Police, Fire and Crime panels in early November, and you will have all seen her, well, I hope you've all seen her report that she circulated as well. Yes? Perfect. Okay, so moving to the minutes, we've got So moving to the minutes, we've got a whole raft of minutes there. Thinking is that we sign off on block if there's any comments. Obviously happy to take those, but if there's any comments about the accuracy of the private minutes, then we would need to go into private session.
Agenda item 5A, am I allowed to ask something on that? No. Thank you.
It's about the minutes, definitely.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yes, I think so, yeah. Is it accuracy or?
Yeah, it's just accuracy.
Of course.
So you've got Northamptonshire Police has the highest ever number of police officers in the neighbourhood, and response team officers were spending 66% of their time in the community. What is the total amount? My question, what is the total amount? Is it not a question?
That would be a tricky one. We put that to the...
Are you saying there's something inaccurate about the minutes?
Well, I'm just... no, they're spending 66% of their time in the community.
That's a question more for the Commissioner than the accuracy of the
sorry,
minutes. Yeah.
right. Okay,
Yeah,
I'll leave that.
Thank you, Andre.
Right.
So are we happy to sign off? Oh, sorry, Councillor Maxwell.
Yeah, I have discussed with Councillor McGee. I don't, and neither she nor I recall her being able to attend the confirmation for Chief Executive on the, is that the 27th of July? Well, it says 2 item Actually, I don't know quite how that works.
Chair, I can confirm I wasn't there because now I know the date. I'm sure that was Glastonbury and I was at Glastonbury.
You'd
so
remember that.
I wasn't there.
I think the fact that it says to item 157 probably referred to a previous meeting where you perhaps dialed in and were only there for a short time, something like that.
Sorry, through you, Chair. So you're talking about the minutes of the meeting on the 27th of July, starting page 15.
Sorry, not that one, beg your pardon, it wasn't that one, it was 14th of August, so it's 14th of August.
What page number are you on?
Page 27, and then the other ones that are private, page 33.
What's the query on that?
So can you clarify what your
What is the
question?
query?
Councillor McGee wasn't at the meeting. The 14th of August it was, sorry.
Okay, well we can make that correction, and yeah, thank you for your apologies, James. So, are we after those couple of corrections? Are we happy to sign off on block? Okay, lovely, thank you. Perfect. Okay, so moving on to item 6. Bear with it.
Sorry, Chair. Just to step back on the minutes of the 14th of August, there is a record of the vote at the end. That needs to be amended also to reflect that Councillor McGee wasn't present. So if the panel, it's a consequential amendment from the first one. So if the panel is happy with that as well. There was one vote against the appointment and all the rest were in favour. Just all the rest was a different amount, taking that into account.
Okay, so we're all clear. Thank you.
Can you repeat what you said, because I'm a bit confused? Are you saying Councillor McGee was not on the 14th of August?
Yeah, she wasn't there.
Can you use the mic?
But it says so.
Mike, Anita, Anita.
There you go.
Yes, but she's listed. Are you saying she should not be there?
No,
She wasn't there.
She wasn't there.
she was at Glastonbury.
No, I wasn't here. I know. I've just checked my calendar.
It's an
I don't know
error.
how I snuck in. Sorry.
It's an error in the draft minutes, Mrs. Shields.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so moving to item 6, responses to recommendations by the panel resulting from the scrutiny of decisions by the PFCC connected with the appointment of an interim chief fire officer. So we can invite Stephen to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and a very good afternoon. The letter you have in front of you sets out my full response to the recommendations agreed by the panel of the meeting held on the... I've got a very good echo. Have I got 2 or something? Or maybe just deeper than normal. Okay. Following the panel held on the 7th of September. Once again, I'd like to apologise for the delay in responding, but this is only due to the fact that I want to ensure you received as full update as possible to underline how seriously I've taken the matter. As you can see from the letter, I've responded from each point in turn and provided the panel with an update on what I've undertaken or implemented. One aspect of the letter I wanted to raise specifically was the appointment of an interim chief constable. As you will appreciate, I won't be commenting on the ongoing investigation, but it's important for the panel to understand that this interim position is exempted for the need from a confirmation hearing. Given the importance of this role, I thought it was important to clarify we provide the panel members with guidance in relation to this situation, and as you'll see from the agenda, you will be provided further update on the matter later. Mr. Chairman, there is also one other issue I would like to raise with the panel directly. I note you collectively agreed to hold a future meeting with me and the Fire Brigade Union representatives. While I appreciate this is a decision for the panel to take, you have to acknowledge and engage with other trade unions and staff associations who represent all of those who work across Northamptonshire Police, the Fire and Rescue Service and the OPFCC. As you know, we do not work in isolation from one another, and collaborative working is one of the key priorities, as I believe it can deliver more efficiencies and effective culture that helps us to support our frontline services. As you can see, as you requested, I've provided you with my action plan, which I can assure you is something we take seriously, incredibly seriously, and we're working hard to implement. We've already made a great deal of progress and of course provide regular updates. I would also like to take this opportunity to underline the fact that I consider my relationship with the panel is one of the key foundations for my role as the PFCC. Key to the success of any PFCC is managing relationships, and I do pride myself on being open, honest, approachable, as I feel this is the best approach to getting things done. I can assure you the lessons have been learned, and I'm confident that going forward we can build on the positive and pragmatic relationship that brought more value and brought real value to my work as the County's PFCC. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I guess we need to consider whether we're satisfied with the actions that the Commissioner has taken, or is in the process of taking, in response to our recommendations. We may also want to consider revisiting the matter in the future. There was a sense, I think the last meeting, that we should sort of have an ongoing monitoring. So something to think on. So just across to the panel now, is there any other points you'd like to raise? Councillor Roberts, rather.
We're talking about openness, and I think it would be nice if it's already in there. I apologise, but if we could come back and have, not every month, but in a few months' time, a conversation and continue that conversation going, so that we make sure that we don't miss anything. We might change our mind on things, and it's good to get together and talk about these things rather than
Mike,
just that.
Mike.
Oh, sorry.
So,
Yeah, I think it's good if we talk on a reasonably regular basis and make sure that we keep this openness going now.
Stephen?
Totally agree.
Councillor Mercer?
I think the Commissioner made a good point about the Fire Brigades Union is not the only union representing members of the police and fire, and I would suggest that if we're going to meet with other representatives from other unions, that's extended beyond just the Fire Brigades Union.
Councillor McGee?
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I'm not sure what other job in the world you can make mistakes like that, write a 4-page letter and then it's all done and dusted. I agree that we need to keep on top of this. I agree that we need to welcome all unions, and beyond that, I mean, I can't really do much more. So, thank you, yeah.
Councillor Strachan?
Thank you, Chair. Also, with reference, Chair, to the letter the email you sent to all panel members about the changes you would like to see. The suggestion is an opportunity, I think, for the panel to be more inclusive at normal panel meetings. I think it's an opportunity for us to offer a non-voting seat on the panel to the FBU, and I say this because in the past the FBU had always sat on scrutiny. Although they didn't have a vote, they sat on scrutiny, they expressed their view, they talked to the fire chief at that time. Today we have the commissioner, so they can do the sign in a friendly, open manner. They can question the commissioner, they can ask the commissioner for explanation on things, on matters that he has agreed to. For instance, confirmation, when we are going to have a confirmation, and he's already made public his preferred candidate, they can go to or come into one of these open panel meetings and perhaps ask the question, why is it you agree to that person? What's the reasoning behind it? To me, that is important. That is one of the things that is missing, and that's why we've had all this upheaval at our last meeting, which was in public, and to me, it wasn't very nice at all, not for any of us. So I'm saying, Chairman, that to me, we should restore, that's what we're doing, we should restore that position to the FBU, that they could send a representative to our meeting. That's the open meeting. And when we have a confirmation meeting, it's totally different. The FBU will not have a vote at our regular meeting, but they'll have a say.
Agree. Well done, Winston.
Well, in our usual panel meetings, we have the ability for the public to speak. So anybody can come along and speak on any agenda item. So I think we already have that mechanism in place. But so thank you for that.
There's been routine attempts to block the public speaking, so that's completely untrue.
We've got
Well,
two
it's-
members of the public speaking today.
Well, yeah, we have two members of the public speaking today.
And Chair, could it be something that we discuss perhaps privately, it's probably not working. But it's something that is needed. They always had, I asked for this about 2 years ago, because the FBA always had a position on the panel. They always had this, they just come and sit down, they talk, they ask the commissioner questions, they talk to other people on the panel, and they don't have a vote. So it makes no difference. But at least there is a dialogue between the union and the commissioner. So the commissioner knows where the union is coming from, where some of the members that the union supports is coming from, and they would know where the commissioner is coming from in a more friendly, open way. I mean, I don't see the commissioner would oppose to that.
As I say, we've got the public part of our meeting, so that, if you recall, when I took the chair, that the encouragement of the public and anybody to come and address any agenda item, it was very much encouraged, and that still stands. So whether it be unions, members of the public, cadets, whatever, these meetings, we want them to be inclusive, and they are inclusive. The matter that we look at not so many months ago was when somebody wants to speak, well, it's not on the agenda. That's the thing. We're clear how we work our meetings, and we need to get a degree of pace in them, particularly today, because West Northamptonshire councillors have a full council meeting at 5 o'clock this evening. So there is the means for the FBU or any other union or anybody to address the panel on agenda items as we stand. So the next speaker I've got is Councillor Maxwell.
Oh, it's working now, sorry. I would have to... I'd like to say that we have... What I'd like to say is we do have an opportunity for anybody, members of the public, whoever they are, the unions, whatever it is, to come along and speak. I think that's how the form should be. I think the format for us as a panel should be as a panel. I think that people can come along and make points regarding the agenda or whatever they wish to make, and that's how it should remain. I think opening up to everybody coming in, you'd have no end of different unions, different bodies coming along. We just wouldn't have a meeting. So I think we ought to leave it so that they can come along and talk as they can. as to the meeting, and we leave it at that.
Councillor Mercer.
Thank you. I have to disagree about inviting the FBU. Councillor Strachan, I think, is referring to the IRMP committee that met many years ago, where it was a completely different setup. I've been on this panel since 2012, and we've never had the FBU. And moreover, what the Commissioner just said about the FBU is not the only union. If we said the FBU should come along, why not the Police Federation and all the others? I don't know all of them myself, but I know there are quite a few different ones. And we have just said that we want to engage with them. And that was said at the last meeting. This was brought up then. We agreed then that we would meet with these unions, but that is on a different forum from at this panel. And likewise, we've just said that we will meet with other unions as well. So I think that is a completely outside this panel, and we need to focus on the work of holding the Commissioner to account, not the discussions with other outside bodies are in addition to that.
So I've got Mrs Shields, Councillor McGee and Councillor Pritchard, and then we're going to draw a line under this because this is not an agenda item, but for openness and transparency, I'm always open to have the discussion. But as I say, we have got quite a bit of business to cover off today. So Mrs Shields.
I've written to Catherine Whitehead regarding inclusion of stakeholder. The fire services was joined only a couple of years ago. They didn't have any representation before because they were not part of the commissioner remit. I think if you want to have a working relationship with the fire service, you should include the fire FBU because they are represented, the fire staff are represented by this union. To exclude the FBU is to antagonize, and I'm not part of any union whatsoever, but I think the stakeholders are important. We've read, the panel has read just recently Frontline Consultancy, who have given really good guideline of how to interact with the different body. Now, when I highlighted this to Catherine Whitehead, her response was very negative. Oh, we don't want the FBU, troublemakers, not such a word, but that is what she says in her email. And I think when you have a situation like that, I'm sorry.
I did not say any of those things.
I'm sorry,
Please
but
show me
you
where
are
I
not
did.
part of this panel. We have 10 councillors, 2 co-opted members, and a chair. And you appear and you dictate to the panel how they should go along.
Mrs Shields, I think might suggest you want to withdraw that last comment.
I beg your pardon?
What did you
say? What did you say?
I said I'd suggest you withdraw that last comment.
Why?
Excuse me.
Why?
Say those things.
There is 10 councillors by the Home Office, 10 councillors, 2 co-op independent members. That's what this panel is. Suddenly, you come about because of all the trouble we have had since July, and you're interfering with the procedure of the panel to
Mrs Shields, please. The monitoring officer advises the panel. She's here for our benefit.
Well, it doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like it for the email.
Well, I could agree with you, but then we'd both be wrong, Mrs Shields, wouldn't we?
Very negative, very negative. We should be working together and inclusive.
Okay, thank you, Mrs Shields. Okay, we'll move to Councillor McGee. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I do think some of the decisions that could be potentially taken by this panel are heading towards undemocratic, but I'm just going to leave you with one question for the public mainly. What are we scared of?
Thank you, Councillor. And final speaker, Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Chair. We've spent an inordinate amount of time going through some of the issues that was, shall we say, committed by the Commissioner. We've actually spent a significant amount of time addressing those problems. He also has, in fact, responded, I think, quite comprehensively with regards to some of the actions that this panel has actually decided upon. We should really get to the stage now, for goodness sake, please move on. Let's look at the rest of this agenda and get on with it.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. Okay, well, that was a bumpy take-off, wasn't it? So back to the item 6. So we've heard from the Commissioner, and we note his update. And I think we're agreed, are we, that we're going to revisit this on a semi-regular basis, as and when anybody wishes to really come back to it. I think this would be the fairest way. Are we happy with that, panel? Yes. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so item 7. So this is the Joint Independent Audit Committee Annual Report 2022-2023. And can we ask the Commissioner to introduce the item?
Madam Chairman, I'm fighting with the head of JIAC who wants to grab the mic. As panel members will know, the Joint Independent Audit Committee supports me and the Chief Constable and our statutory officers in ensuring that effective governance arrangements are in place and functioning efficiently and effectively. The committee plays a critical role in helping me to hold the Chief Constable to account, as well as providing critical oversight of the work of the OPFCC. By bringing the Joint Independent Audit Annual Report to the Police, Fire and Crime Panel, it helps to bring together the assurances of our processes with the scrutiny of the decisions to increase transparency. The Chairman of the Committee, Anne Bantam, without an E, I believe, Anne, has joined us today and will now present the Committee's annual report to you and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Chairman and panel members, and the Commissioner for that introduction. It's good to be here again. This is my once a year report to you. I don't plan to read the report because I assume that's been done, but obviously this report was as at the end of March, which is some time ago. So I thought I would just give you an update on where we are on some of the issues. So on page 63, we talked about appointing a new member, and I'm pleased to report that, subject to a good recruitment with 11 applicants, 4 interviewees, we have made an offer to a new member subject to vetting, so we'll be up to full complement on the committee. The committee membership is under item 3, and 2 of the members of the committee have just been appointed for a further second term. That is John and Edith. Moving on then to workshops that you see, we held some workshops, and we will hold another workshop. We've in November we held one on the fire accounts, and we will hold one in a week or so on the police accounts. We assessed the committee's performance against its plan and the objectives that were made, and we made some new objectives for 23-24, which are included at the end. The key topics that we raised, you will know, is the first one is annual accounts and external audit. I'm sure you'd be well aware from all the news in the press and at government level that this is a national issue, and I would compliment the Commissioner and his staff on how they've continued to work with the auditors in these very difficult situations, and unfortunately frustrating that the delays continue. But we keep it at the forefront of our work. We also had a procurement process during the year by PSA for future external audit, and we will be changing external auditors. So hopefully things will improve. Future systems, we looked at those, and I'm pleased to report that the move from systems and from the multi-force shared services worked well, and the in-house systems have been implemented and are progressing as would be expected. Reports come to the GIAC quite regularly on that, and one of the things we looked at was benefits realisation as well. We had an in-depth workshop on risk management, and risk is something obviously high on the agenda, and risk registers that regularly come to the GIAC meetings. We've looked at the capital programme and the medium-term financial plan, which is something that comes cyclically every year, and the governance framework as well. And we rely quite heavily on internal audit assessments, the outcome of those, and to make sure that plans are in place to address any internal audit recommendations or recommendations from other audits or reviews, and that those plans are kept to time. So I think the internal audit, yes, we've now got Mazars appointed for all of the organisations, which is good. And I think really that's it. So yes, if anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to take questions.
So thank you very much for that. So yeah, over to the panel to raise any points relating to this report. Mrs. Shields.
Thank you, Anne. This is very good. I did raise that last time we need, but it's something that you have said yourself in your report. The timing and the fees associated with the delivery of the external audit, has it increased from the previous time? And do you find that it is exorbitant, and have you done anything about it for challenging this situation? Is there any possibility that you can include in a contract a penalty clause regarding the delivery?
It's a really difficult area. I mean, that's a really good question, and something that is at the forefront of our minds. Unfortunately, the contract with the external auditors is through PSAA, which is Public Sector Accounting Authority, so we cannot enforce anything under the contract. And as I say, we're not the only ones in this position. Out of 467 bodies, I think there's only 5 that have had audits.
I know that you have written, Helen King, I believe, have written to that situation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wrote personally to our audit head of audit on the 10th of October, and I'm still waiting for a reply. So that gives you some idea of what we're up against, basically. But it is frightening. It's nothing that I ever in my profession, have seen before. But the fact that it's at government level now, I think we're just in the lap of what will happen. So we just hope that going forward with different auditors, this won't be repeated. As to, did you mention audit fees?
Yeah.
Yes, well again, the scale fees are set by PSAA as part of the contract procurement, and I would think a threefold increase is what we're looking at. But I understand from officers that has been budgeted for because it was to be expected.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Mass.
Thank you. Thank you for your report. It's very pleasing to see that the transfer over to the new system or to the internal has gone so smoothly. These things are really complicated, and sometimes there are sort of hiccups along the way. You referred to the HR and payroll services transitioning in 1st of April 2024. I wondered if that was the last of it, so that everything within mics keep going off. I wondered if that was the last of the systems that needed transfer.
I believe it is, yes.
I think that's more for us than you.
Yes, but good knowledge.
Very well.
So, Councillor González-de-Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of questions. Firstly, good luck with the auditors, as I do understand that the fees are proposed to go up to 150%, which is an absolutely extortionate rate. And I know it is set out of our area, but I do think that you've got a very strong position to make a complaint about that, as we all are doing in many different places. The other element, just a question in terms of membership. I note that the quorum should be 2 members, Mr. Chairman. 2 members seemed an incredibly small... The mic's on. Yes. 2 members seems an incredibly small number to have a quorum of any meeting. Can you tell me out of interest also why there are only 4 meetings a year? Thank you.
Yes, well, if I go to the meetings per year, 1 meeting a quarter, and then we have at least 2 or 3 workshops on top of that. So I think that's, in my opinion and in my experience, that is quite sufficient. But there's nothing to stop us calling an extra meeting if there's a particular reason that we need to. So, and as to the quorum, yes, 2. I've never known there to only be 2. And I think members are very well engaged, and even one of our members, when he was abroad for some time, still was fully engaged remotely. So we've never only had 2, but no.
I'd like to compliment you, because actually I think you've actually had 4 out of 4 or 4
in every meeting. Yeah.
It tends to be quite a similar number in a lot of the Police and Crime Commission or audit committees that are set up. It tends to be a similar number. When I was in Leicestershire, I don't think the number was dissimilar, and definitely the number of meetings were not dissimilar to they have in Northamptonshire. But if I could say, Anne, what we do have in Northamptonshire are quite a few workshops. The statement of accounts workshops that we have on fire and police here, we didn't have when I had them in Leicestershire. And we have a very engaged group of members who virtually, well, always attend all of the meetings and virtually attend all of the workshops. So I've been delighted with the engagement of our members. I know that wasn't a question, but I just thought I'd slip it in.
I think I would also make one point that whilst we might be able to meet more times, there is a lot of papers on the meetings, and it puts a lot of work onto officers. So I think I wouldn't want to have meetings just for the sake of having meetings. And as for the fee point, yes, one of the fees, which is currently about 30,000, is going up to 95,000. So I think it's 300%.
We do actively challenge it every opportunity.
Oh, we do.
I don't think I'm PSAA's favourite person. No. I always require a meeting when we challenge the fees. They will speak to us and they will look out for it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's very helpful to know. I think my point really was centred around the fact that with only 4 meetings a year, and I quite understand obviously there are workshops in between, with the substantive roles currently in both services, fire and police, being on an interim level, and clearly finance as well. It's obviously reassuring to have more meetings to keep people closer together, the details. They don't understand otherwise where the plan's going, but I appreciate your clarity and clarification, and good luck with the renegotiation of those fees. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
So, Anne, thank you so much for your report. If the panel notes said report, Mrs. Councillor Maxwell, apologies.
I was just going to ask, are we allowed as an observer to come to the workshops?
No, not the workshops,
You're
but
very welcome
to any of the meetings, but not the workshops.
We actively would love the public to
Yes.
Please, honestly. Jill's come to one in the past.
Yes, yeah.
Jill's the only one with that gold star. It looks like you want one too, don't you?
So, thank you. So, moving on to agenda item 8, the Northamptonshire Police Acting Chief Constable arrangements. So, over to the Commissioner.
Thank you. Mr Chairman, as we discussed earlier in the meeting, I'm committed to ensuring the panel are kept updated and informed in relation to the situation regarding the post of Chief Constable of Northamptonshire Police. The report in front of you today provides a comprehensive narrative in relation to the background and process behind the appointment of Ivan Balhatchett as the acting Chief Constable. I've been very clear that we will ensure there will be an active engagement and support from the panel for our interim arrangements whilst the Chief Constable is suspended. These are quite unprecedented times in Northamptonshire, and it's vital that we ensure there is continuity and leadership for the force. I'm not willing to put at risk the improvements to the force that we have delivered, as the challenges of policing as an ever-growing county will only get more difficult for us in the future. Mr Chairman, David and I are happy to take any questions, but as I'm sure you will understand, we cannot comment on the ongoing IOPC investigation.
Thank you. So any panel members wish to raise any points relating to this? So Councillor Maxwell.
Maybe this isn't a question I should actually ask, actually, in that case. But since you don't know how long it's going to go on for, I presume that Mr Adderley's been paid.
I'm going to comment in a minute.
In line with police regulations, yes, Mr Adderley is suspended on full pay. What I would say to panel members is we remain in very active engagement with the Independent Office for Police Conduct and wish to see a timely resolution of this. That's not prejudging the outcome. It's just that this process needs to be completed and we are in regular contact with them.
Thank you. Councillor Gonzalez de Savage.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Can I ask what support is being offered to Chief Constable Adderley whilst he's not here, and how in the loop is he being kept in terms of plans and activity in the police force?
You can answer the first part, I'll do the second part.
Okay. So in relation to support, I'm acting as the single point of contact for welfare from the office. That allows the Commissioner to remain kind of clean in terms of any decision making that he may have to make during the process. It is standard practice that suspended officers will have access to a support officer through their membership organisation. For Chief Constables, that is an organisation called Supposer. He has a Supposer friend who is another Chief Constable. He's being supported by him. I'm in contact with that person as well to make sure that we triangulate to make sure that his welfare is sorted.
On the second part, a suspended officer, Chief Constable, has their technology, their warrant card removed from at the point of suspension. It would be inappropriate for any conversations relating to the operation of the force to be had with the Chief Constable. Ivan Balhatchett is the acting Chief Constable. All decisions and all that go through him and me. Nick Adderley has no part in them at this time.
Thank you. Councillor McGee.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say that it makes perfect sense to appoint someone as the new Chief Officer who has worked their way through the police force and is a member of the police force, knows how the police force runs and has in fact been shadowing the person who has been running the police force. Makes absolutely perfect sense, is a great decision, and I'd like to see that decision echoed throughout.
Thank you. And Mrs Shields.
Yes, my point is, perhaps David Peat could answer that one. You stated that he was, according to the Home Office, etc., on full pay. Since we don't know, since this panel doesn't know, and the Commissioner, of course, the timing that it can take up to 2 years or even 3 years. We have seen other situations similar than this elsewhere. So the cost attributed to a full pay plus the one that we are going to have for acting, do we have a reserve for that, contingency reserve for meeting those additional costs that I'm sure you were not anticipating?
Shall I go for that one? We don't have a specific reserve, because obviously at the beginning of the year we didn't know that this would be the case, so we haven't created a specific reserve for it. But we do have sufficient contingency within the existing police budget. It has contingencies for day-to-day events that happen within the year. We do also have, which I'd rather not use, but if we have to use it, the general reserve that we would use and then top back up again and plan to top it back up again. But we do have sufficient contingencies and reserves to meet such eventualities. And this year, when we come onto the finance paper, you'll see that there is not a budget pressure in policing this year.
Helen, is that contingency reserve will be into the specific reserve, yes?
No, there is a contingency actually within the revenue budget as well. Operational day-to-day contingencies which are available for policing to meet any ad hoc one-to-one. So that's in addition to specific reserves, and the policing budget is not looking to overspend at this point this year, so it can be accommodated within that figure.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Gonzalez de Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question really to us at the panel and yourself, sir, as chairman of this panel. Quite clearly, the stress and pressure and the uncertainty to an awful lot of people, including our Chief Constable, must be quite something. And I wonder whether you might be able to say on behalf of the panel to write to the IOPC and ask them to give us an update in terms of the report, effectively, or the completion of their investigation. I appreciate that at the end of the day, it's a particular point, which is mine, and it's not the panel's, but I would like it expedited, I'm sure, for everyone's sake, and I'm sure that the Commissioner would certainly appreciate an answer to it as well. He had a very quick answer to his inquiry originally, and I don't see why we can't have one back for the Chief Constable too.
Here, here.
I agree.
I think the sentiment, I think, is felt by most people. But I think as it's a live investigation, I think there's sufficient noise being made without us making further noise. But I absolutely get your sentiment. I think it's we represent the residents of West and North Northamptonshire. So yes, that's noted. Thank you, Councillor.
Can I just give some reassurance, and David might comment further. We are applying as much as appropriate pressure to the IOPC to make sure they're expeditious in their inquiries. But also at the same time, it is really important they're allowed to do their investigation. We should not forget, not only is this around gross misconduct, it also has a criminal investigation attached to it. So we are treading very, very carefully, but I can assure you an awful lot of time and effort to try and move on, because you're absolutely right. There's a great deal of uncertainty. We've got some fantastic, hard-working police officers out there. There is some uncertainty on behalf of the public, and I think for everyone's benefits, not only the public's, NIC's, the forces, we're doing everything we can to bring that to fruition. I don't know if you want to add anything, David.
Thank you. So unless we have any other questions, we will note that item. Thank you. So moving on to agenda item 9, the police, fire and crime plan delivery update. And I think we have a Mr. Craig Blatcher who wishes to ask a question. So welcome, Mr. Blatcher.
So I'm going to read off my phone, so I do apologise. So thank you for allowing me to come here today. As we know, Mr Mould has been in for a significant amount of time now, and our council tax precept keeps rising. We, the public, are informed that Northamptonshire has a record amount of police officers. Therefore, why, when I called Northamptonshire Police in July 2023, did it take the force 22 minutes to respond to an emergency Grade 1 incident whereby threats of violence had been offered towards me in Wellingborough? When I contacted the OPFCC to complain, they acknowledged it took 22 minutes and said it may seem excessive, and stated the response I received wasn't unreasonable or disproportionate. To put this into perspective, I can drive from Rushden to Northampton in about 25 minutes. The police and crime performance plan acknowledges that response times have been slower. During this incident, I could have been seriously injured, and the location of this incident sits memorial of a young male who sadly lost his life in 2021. When will the Commissioner realise this is not the public's expectation of Northamptonshire Police, and when will the response times improve, and will he apologise for this service? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blatcher. So, Commissioner, would you like to make any comment?
Yes, I just would like to say a few words to Mr. Blatcher. I am aware of the incident he's referring to, and I don't believe in this meeting it's appropriate forum to discuss individual cases in detail. But I can assure the panel that Mr. Blatcher did raise his concerns with the customer service team, who looked into the matter and provided him with an explanation regarding the response time. When Mr. Blatcher remained dissatisfied with the explanation provided, the complaint was referred to the Forces Professional Standards Department, who were satisfied that a reasonable and proportionate response had already been provided to Mr. Blatcher. Mr. Blatcher then sought a review of the complaint by the OPFCC, which was not upheld. As you see from the update report today, the OPFC provides a very efficient and supportive service to those not happy with the service they receive from the force. They provided Mr. Blatcher with a high level of service and is taking the opportunity to have decisions reviewed which in this instance have not been upheld. The law states the PFCC should not fetter the operational independence of the police force and the chief constable who leads it. However, I can assure you, but both the panel and Mr. Blatcher, that I take the issue of response times incredibly seriously. Regularly raise this directly with the Chief Constable to ensure the force maintains and strives to improve performance for response times to emergencies, but also strikes the appropriate balance between swiftness of response and ensuring the quality of service to members of the public when in attendance, and if there are any issues that are dealt with as a matter of urgency.
Thank you. So we have another speaker listed, but I don't see Councillor Randall here. So has anyone heard from Councillor Randall? No. Okay, so we'll move on then. So if we can invite Commissioner to introduce your report. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, as you'll see, today's report is somewhat comprehensive, but I wanted to ensure you have a full review of the work undertaken by my office. As you can see, we've been successful yet again. It's nice to say that yet again, with our bids for funding for safer streets. We will now be rolling out a forensic property marking and asset recording scheme across Weston in Northampton and Kingswood in Corby, along with new security measures on and around Junction 15 at the Watford Gap services. Have I got it or are we all gone? Oh no, I'm back. At Watford Gap Services, and a number of new measures to help protect women and girls using public transport. Our latest success means we've been awarded nearly £4 million to invest in crime prevention, and working with partners, we have been able to boost with a further £1 million to boost safety in the communities across the county. This work is making a real difference to local residents, and as members will know, the Safer Nights Out bus or snow van has made a real difference to those who need help or assistance when enjoying a night out in Northampton. Since its launch, the Northampton Guardians have helped at least 1,200 people in a variety of ways, ranging from supplying water, warmth, first aid, or helping them. Oh, we're back. It's a bit harsh on poor James. The snowban has provided its worth in Northamptonshire, and we're very pleased to say we have now provided a new one to the north of the county in Kettering. Today's report also sends a comprehensive update on the working of the early intervention team, who continue to help and support vulnerable people to help them avoid entering the criminal justice system. Early intervention has always been a key priority for me, and the work of this team is reflected in the overwhelming positive feedback we receive. The support we are now providing to the Forces Missing Persons Unit will help to protect and support vulnerable children, and will be helpful, meaning parents are spared the nightmare of their child going missing or falling victim to abuse or exploitation. Finally, Mr Chairman, I know we're short on time. I've provided you with a brief update on the Serving with Pride staff survey for the fire service, which is aimed to find out what members of the Fire and Rescue Service thought were positive of workings for the service and what improvements could and should be made. This is an important piece of work which helped to shape the future of the service and its culture in years to come. This work is ongoing, but I'll bring further full update on the report and the consultation to a future meeting of the panel. Thank you. As ever, happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Commissioner. So clearly, panel can raise any points relating to this, but we've obviously got the performance reports in there. We're not here to scrutinise the police, fire and rescue performance. So, and over to panel. Councillor Maxwell.
I have two questions. First question is, why are we paying for 287 properties for new? Actually, it's 594 new doors for 287 properties in Wellingborough. Why are we paying for those? Why aren't the people who, excuse me, why isn't NNC paying for these? Or the company who built the houses? That's the first question. Do you want to answer that one?
I can, if you turn your
mic. Oh, yes.
Thank you. One of the things we do is we don't, and I don't mean this in a flippant way, we don't sort of darken room and say, oh, we'd like to do that. What is done is a specific piece of analysis around risk, acquisitive crime and stuff like that. I can honestly say the work that we've done there is in conjunction with the name of boy that's just popped out of my head, Greatwell Homes, who I can only commend for their partnership, because we put money in and they also put some money in. They are properties that are owned by them. So actually it's done in conjunction with, if you like, because they are the arm's length body of yourselves in Northamptonshire. We at other times have done work with Northamptonshire Partnership Homes here in Northamptonshire. Those are our most, if you like, most vulnerable and where there is a genuine crime risk and has had a proven effect on driving down. I think on one of the assessments we did, particularly in Wellingborough and Preston, there's been a 40% reduction in the acquisitive crime as a consequence of it.
So my second question is regarding Northampton College. I gather that you've set up a course there, Safer Street project, which you've actually invested £20,000. Was that, it was aimed for 1,000 students. Is that a normal thing you would actually do?
As part of my wider attempt to make the safer women's agenda keeps going. Just have to have a second one and I'll back up, won't we? As part of that drive in terms of things, we've tried all sorts. We've obviously got things in the nighttime economy, whether it be the ID scan, which when you go into establishments, thank you, try a different one, yeah, definitely not. Maybe the battery's flat. We've done things from the ID scan, we've got undercover cops in the nighttime economy looking for errant behaviour, but also we've done some work to try and make sure that we educate and predominantly what does good look like in terms of behaviour. And if you walk down there in terms of some of our campaigns, enough's enough. So actually we're deliberately trying to drive it down. So it was in partnership with Northampton College to actually do it. And obviously, as with all of these things, we will look and or measure. And the good thing is it's about trying to demonstrate what appropriate behaviour and comments look like. We want to create an environment that, you know, quite frankly, anyone can go out, have a very nice time, get home safely, wear what they want, not what other people think is a want, and also, as the Northampton College, it also deals with something about what's appropriate in also relationships as well. So hopefully there will be additional benefits to reductions in domestic violence and other those things as well.
Can I ask you then, has antisocial behaviour improved? I think not, but anyway, has antisocial behaviour improved on the roads from young people?
You know, I have a lot of respect for you, Dorothy. I think that was a closed question where you said, I think not. I can actually show you statistics, and I think in the performance plan, antisocial behaviour is actually down. But my challenge is, and one of the things that we are looking at as we go into next year, look, we have more police officers than ever before. We actually have crime coming down. Genuinely, people are safer. But one of the concerns I've genuinely got is I'm not convinced that people feel safer. So we're actually looking as part of a wider piece of work, as part of our consultation, to see if we can understand what we can do to make people feel safer and or what they want. So there is some engagement in that area. We will be coming forth, some of you know, we also managed to secure £1 million a year for the next 2 years from a government fund to drive, and we're one of 15 pilot areas to do it. And that's around, I'm going to call them cautions, conditional cautions, where they're alternatives. So I'm using you, Dorothy, because I know you wouldn't do it. But if you was wrecking somebody's fence or something like that, there might be a community programme that you might actually have to go and help fix it. So we're looking in terms of remedy. In addition to that, from next year, we will be getting some additionality around hotspots patrols to actually identify it. I have said we will, in addition to it, we will front load it. So we have put some money aside to make sure there are hotspot patrols. So we've both got the deterrent and the remedy, and we've also got some stuff there that actually to make sure that we identify more of it. As we've talked about before, the number of neighbourhood police officers has continued to increase. It is a key priority for us as we get any additionality. And as some of you know, we keep pushing on the subject of the funding formula. But any money we get will be prioritised towards neighbourhood policing. Because we fundamentally believe that that visible presence, that proactive approach in communities will make the difference. As some of you know, we started at 50, we've got to 116. We will aim to be at 150 into next year as well. And we're looking for other opportunities to increase that further.
Thank you. So I've got speakers down as Councillor McGee, Councillor Mercer, Mrs Shields, followed by Councillor Pritchard. So Councillor McGee.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, it's great to see Kingswood on there, not only because it's my area, but because that work is very much needed. So I look forward to a 40% reduction in antisocial behaviour or burglary or whatever in that area, because it's very much needed. Also, I'd just like to ask a question, really, around the report into culture and values in the fire service. I understand there'd probably be the same thing in the police service. Is there an opportunity for something like that to be undertaken within the office of the OFPCC itself?
Absolutely. So what we actually did, it was about 18 months ago, some of you, and it led into this. We ran we engaged Ipsos Mori to do exactly that. I wanted an audit across all three organisations to give myself assurance, both at my own office, but both the police and the fire service. And we looked very carefully at the findings from it. And I'm quite happy for that report to be shared with the panel. Each of the organisations is in a different place. Some of the police have been on that journey for longer, but actually this was a specific piece of work for the fire service, and it was built on the back of some of the lessons that we've also learned from a policing service.
Thank you. I'd love to see that report. I think that should be shared with the panel, and I also wonder whether it's worth a refresh into that given the circumstances and recent events, whether it would be great to see what the culture and values are like within the office now after the learnings that have gone in the last couple of months.
As with all of these, we will, and I use Serving with Pride as an example, we have a baseline and we'll be looking to re-look at that baseline, if that makes sense. I would suggest that, and it's quite right, that anything, because there will be some changing depending on who the Commissioner is after May anyway.
You're planning to leave us, Commissioner, is that right?
That's up to your electorate, Mr. Young Winston.
Councillor Mercer.
Thank you. Thank you for a very comprehensive report. I'm particularly impressed with the work that you're doing on the early intervention. I just have a couple of quick questions. The second snow van that is coming to Kettering is only once a month on a Friday. I wondered if that was a capacity issue for volunteers or if you're intending to extend it. And the second question is about the missing persons. About the missing persons. Sorry, there's other people speaking in this room. And I wondered if that was involved with children in care, and whether in that case if you work with the Children's Trust on that.
Two parts. I'll deal with the missing persons first. As you know, this was about creating a trial where we actually put a member of the ACE team in with the missing persons unit from a police department. Because broadly what was happening, at a lower level, they weren't getting the kind of, if you like, return to home interviews. And it's appropriate that, if you like, a youth worker engages with that. And it was done as a trial over 50, and it quite frankly had some astounding results. 2 people were safeguarded on the back of it, and no one else has been gone missing as a consequence of that. So we continue to look to see how that will develop. And can you remind me, I've got so carried away because I'm so passionate about the missing one, but I didn't ask the first part of the question. I apologise.
That was the one Friday a month for the snow van.
Now, obviously, the snow van is volunteered in conjunction with the... The snow van is in its early days. Obviously, this is worked in conjunction with... So say you unplugged me then, if you're going through them, aren't we? Have another one. Yeah. Someone spiked me today. You can answer all the questions. We are off to slow start. We do need in terms of volunteers. The only other bit, which is an odd one, which is a good news, and we're still trying to work that out, is actually the uptake is actually quite small. So actually the nighttime economy in Kettering is not at the same level as it is in Northampton. So we will continue to monitor it. We will do all we can to show it, but we also need to work in conjunction with partners. So actually I think in Kettering it's a mixture of the Guardians and also the street pastors. So we want to continue to build on it. But it is important to know it's staffed by volunteers, and we are very grateful. As you'll notice in the report, the Guardians in Northampton have given an astounding amount of support and their valuable free time.
Mrs Shields.
Commissioner, I would like to ask you a pertinent question on a performance report on a prevention that keeps the public safe. And I'm looking here about your comment vis-à-vis of the result you have achieved on reduced repeat victimization. Now, you say at the end of September 23, the overall domestic abuse repeat rate was 44.9, and this is a 3.7 lower than the previous 12 months. This is all very well, but it does not give me any informed data when you look at your nearest neighbors, when you look into your national average and the baseline. So you only give me a data. What am I supposed to do? Well, very good, you know. You don't give me any benchmarking, and that's what is lacking all the time. Now, you're coming also to say Sunflower Centre have seen a 14% reduction in repeat victim referral, but you go on by saying they have also experienced an increase in new victim referral. So again, no benchmarking compared to the previous year, compared to the national average, and what is their baseline. So I'm not the wiser. And then your concluding, the violence against women and girls agenda remain a focus nationally. And we are very much aware, because only a few days ago it was a white ribbon internationally. And this is a subject I am very, very concerned, because the attack sexually or in any other form against women and girls is not going down. And I'm not seeing any data that give me confidence that this is part of your priority. And I would like to know if, A, you can provide those data, i.e. those benchmarking, who would reassure the public that this is part of your crime plan. Unless I get that, then, you know, I'm not the wiser. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for that. Several parts, I will go away and have a look. I get what you're saying. We've got percentages. It would be very helpful if we actually also provided some quantitative numbers. We can look at it. There has been. I think whatever one I use is going. I'm not sure I'm breaking all of them, but we'll keep going. The first thing I kind of want to reassure you, it remains a very important part of my agenda. And one of the things that we're actually be looking at, and we'll talk about them in terms of the budget process, we want to redouble. It is worth. I'm just sat in the wrong locations. I'm too far away from the mic or something. Broken this one. There we go. There are some additionality that we'll look at. It is worth pointing out that, of course, Sunflower Centre, and I thank each of their councils and those in terms of their contributions. I say that because actually we're now back in the discussions in negotiation to make sure that we've got longer term funding. As some of you know, and you ask about my commitment, Sunflower was standalone. It's funded by partners. We brought it in to my office, if you like, and then we now collect the money for it. Such is my commitment, so that we can also maintain the individuals that are in there, because what happens is essentially every year in January their jobs go up on risk and they want to have got them, and that's no way to take it seriously. So I urge you all to go back to encourage your councils, partners to continue to come forward on it. We will, in addition to that, we've asked for and looking for an end-to-end review in how policing deals with its response to domestic violence, because it continues to be one of the very largest crime categories that we continue to go. I probably, what we should do is, I think, if I may, I'm going to take this away and provide you reassurance. If I may, when we've done that, provide a private briefing for the panel on DV and actually the whole wider agenda, and we can probably be more explicit in terms of some of those things. So at the panel's discussion, I propose we bring together a more comprehensive understanding of all the things we're doing in this area.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Chair. What I've heard so far is everything seems to be based around Wellingborough, Kettering, Corby, Northampton. We get into the stage, actually, particularly from some of my residents in the rural areas, is that in fact, you know, some of the response times and some of the attention that in fact that the policing authority are actually giving in these areas is to be, should we say, a lot to be desired. What assurances can the Commissioner give us that, in fact, the rural areas will be looked after and will be policed to a certain extent?
Thank you. I actually share your concern, and there's a lot of pressure being applied to the force. Particularly the extremities of Northamptonshire, and you're particularly referring to your area, which borders Milton Keynes. applied a lot of pressure to say, what are we doing around the response in those areas? You know, I've had some discussions about how we're both dissatisfied the responses that we're providing in those areas. There is also, I mentioned earlier in terms of my consultation, I'm very keen to make sure we understand, and it's a kind of a misnomer, because actually the area you're talking about isn't really rural, is it? I mean, we're talking the Dean's Hangers, they're not really rural, they're very large towns. And I think one of the things that I'm keen to make sure, Northampton has this propensity to drag in, along with kind of our Ketterings, our Wellingborough, our Corbies, and I think they've got in terms of good there. But actually, that's why what I would call traditionally rural, so in other words, plant machinery, farms and stuff like that, there is a dedicated team for. I remain dissatisfied at what we're doing on the extremities of the county, which is also why we've been pushing for a pilot which would affect South Northamptonshire and the north of county, which is actually, I will be announcing in due course to give some additionality in those areas.
Thank you. Councillor Gonzalez de Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question to the Commissioner. In terms of the visible policing side of things, I know that we all would like to see more police on the streets in a pleasant, engaging way, as is obviously very much encouraged always, and they have been recently at various different events that have been taking place in our towns and villages right across the county, which is good to see. But can you reassure us that the high number of officers that you currently have will be deployed on a community basis as well, in a high visibility perspective? I mean, I know that we have towns that are very much undergoing lots of different refurbishment areas, including Northampton here with the Market Square, etc. And people like to have the reassurance that when they walk through Abingdon Street in our shopping areas or restaurants, the nighttime economy, that they have some resilience there. I don't think that we have any ghettos, I don't think we have any problems in our towns, but it is useful to have that reinforcement and the friendly face. The other element I'd just like to ask is, what's the investment going into our call centre effectively? Because there are issues there. I've called recently myself, others have also done the same thing, and we've had an incident during the meeting today. I'd like to be reassured that investment is going into that. I know that there is recruitment, and I've seen a recent joining team there, but clearly we need to have response as well. So one comes with the other. Thank you.
Thank you, very good questions. Two parts of that, and I will go back to it. Because of the recruitment that we've had from a police officer perspective, I'm afraid, whether we like it or not, we've drawn from the control room in terms of people see that as a route there. We've also found that, given some of the I'm going to call them private sector, not to mention policing hasn't helped itself. The pay grading system within the control room has meant when other opportunities, we keep it's a great place to recruit from, and we keep taping it. So we actually have, as part of our budget setting process, there is a proposal that in principle is agreed, which will look at both the salary in there, but also around making sure additionality. Because you're absolutely right, we have seen unprecedented demand for our 999s and 101s. Some of those have been technical, so in other words, that's a national problem. It's particularly affected us because we had a particular problem with Leicestershire, weren't be able to handle those, and that overflow was coming into ours, and that actually came up in our bit. We're also looking, is there some automation, particularly with single online home, to make it easier to report non-urgent crimes. But be very assured, we are very alive to it, and there is a business case to invest in it. But we've gone out of our way to recruit more people, but the demand continues to keep up. The problem, I want to give some reassurance, it's not crime demand, it's a wider piece. And as some of the public services have come under pressure, we've picked up, mental health is a good example of some of it. I share your comments around what we would say, given the situation with visibility. On the visibility front, we've... My friend's mic. Am I back yet? Am I back? No, I'm not. Other one next to you. Hold on. As soon as you hit one, it comes back, I think. one of the reasons I was particularly concerned, and you mentioned some of those areas, we invested in 2 beat buses. The reason we put two beat buses is to make sure, you know, you've got small villages that are not used to seeing in terms of that presence. So what I wanted to do is create somewhere where actually there's a regular, if there's a farmer's market, if there's a particular day for a couple of hours, that they're actually out and about. And this is less of an issue, and this is that distinction, less of an issue than, say, in our town centres, where if you want to go out with Beth and the team down here in Northampton, there's quite a presence here. Where we struggle a little bit is that if you've got a village with a couple of hundred people or 50 people in it, with the utmost respect, they're not tending to. If you're not looking out the window at the right time, you're not going to see a police officer driving past. You know, I'm not saying we've suggested it, but you're like, do you flick your lights on so people notice? That's not really what we're about. So actually, the beat bus is deliberately designed, and I went out and there is a regular program that it goes to where people can see where it is. So if they've got stuff to raise, both crime prevention and making sure that we do it. Some of you will also know that we've continued to struggle on our numbers to main PCSOs. So if you do nothing from today, encourage everyone to apply for our current PCSO cohort. We've gone to amazing lengths to try and maintain it. So much so that we've changed the way that they're trained and maintained. So of course that's in addition to what we're trying to do in terms of 150. I think it's about 80 something that we've got right now. So we want to continue to expand. There are also some bits that we're trying to make sure. For those of you of young kids, you know they spend an awful lot of time looking at their screens, which is both an advantage. We have a younger workforce than most because we've recruited so many. So actually there is some bits about making sure that we, from a training and development point of view, help our people to be more engaging. Some of you will have noticed, which might seem odd on one level, but in my strategic outcomes letter to the Chief Constable, a more customer-focused approach. And that's actually about trying to make sure that they engage, because actually quite a lot of the times with the complaints, and we see them firsthand, is that they're not getting feedback, they're not in terms of their communication. So there is a wider piece of work about satisfaction that we're trying to do. But please be aware, we also, because some of the challenges the Met have had with recruitment, the government has made available, and I'll let Mrs. King correct me with the numbers in a minute, they still wanted to achieve the 20,000. I've got green and red now. I think I've truly broken it. I'm back. They still wanted to achieve the 20,000, so they made extra money available to other areas if they were able to over-recruit. Because we started on our recruitment journey earlier with the 20,000, I think currently we're at 1,537, I think it is, or 30, it's 30 something. It's in the 30s, I could be 32, 37. And you might seem odd, so we deliberately have invested that money to go over. The reason we want to go over is it gives us time before, and I can't, sounds like a whine here, our police officers to mature in terms of that knowledge and or experience. So having them longer, it will probably drift down over time unless I get it back to the mean of 1,500. But I can assure you we're over it, and that's giving us some capacity to both train and invest in terms of visibility. And that was a long answer to the question. But.
Thank you. Councillor Maxwell, then followed by Councillors Carr, Mrs Shields, Councillor Roberts and Councillor Strachan. Thank you.
Mine's just a quick question. Going back to the villages,
Okay, we'll just take a minute here.
Particularly that one.
Sometimes I wonder if some laptops, sometimes, not always, laptops on the same thing.
Okay, so we're back in the room. So, Councillor Maxwell.
My question is, going back to the villages, one of the questions they've actually asked me, the villages that I go to, is when will we come back to a face-to-face contact with one member of a councillor from a village to a meeting? We used to have them, but we haven't had them now for about 5 years, would I say? And I just think it was useful for the person who is, because each village has a police liaison person, and every time they come to give their what's happened, not a lot, because they just feel they'd like to. That doesn't have to be a regular thing, but it would be useful to have a meeting.
I'm not aware of the specific you're returning to you're talking about, so if we can take that offline and I can better understand it. We did make a commitment particularly around making sure, because previous Chief Constable, do you want me to stop while you swap with me? Is that what you're...
No, we're just trying to see...
I'm still all right. Oh, you're ready with coiled springs, gents. I'll break it. I seem to have done it every time. Now you're stood there, it'll probably be no problem. It's going to work all of the time now. The reality is the previous chief had said that we wouldn't attend parish councils, and I say we, police wouldn't. That's changed. They are now attending. So I'm keen to understand what you've got. I mean, at the end of the day, it's great we've got more police officers now. You've got 1,500 still protecting over 800,000 people. So by the very definition of it, there's a number of, in terms of specialist roles and all those sorts of things. And I say, don't say this in no excuses. We do allow them time off and to sleep. So as a consequence of that, you've got hundreds on time, not 1,000, if that makes any sense. So there is definitely some work that we need to do if people are feeling it. But in the end, that's a bit why I said from a consultation point of view, to understand a bit around feeling safe and being safe, because genuinely they are safer. But I'm not convinced everyone's feeling it. It's gone.
See, that's how it is.
So I'm happy to take that outside with you. And we are doing some engagement sessions and, like I say, some workshops. We're doing 21 over a 6 to 8 week period. We brought someone external to actually have a conversation, and it'll be in each of the former borough areas to make sure that we've got the right geographical coverage.
Councillor Carr.
Good afternoon. I've just got a few observations and comments for you, if I may. Presents. I had a situation in the summer where a brand new car that I'd acquired, which had done 1,000 miles, blew up whilst I was driving it. And I ground to a halt just as a police car was passing me. They turned around and came to my aid. They were fantastic, and I hated to add, it was on a Saturday, and I was on my way to a community event, of which they told me whilst I was waiting to be recovered, because there was nowhere for me to go. It was causing all sorts of problems. They told me that they were going to 4 different events that day, and I felt quite guilty because obviously I was causing this problem. So the police, if they're able to, they are out and about at these community events. They were on Saturday at the light switch on at Wellingborough, engaging with people, and 2 police officers that I actually knew. A couple of other things, though, if I just stick with Wellingborough, and it's a comment which has come up recently. There has been a slight rise, or it's been there for a while, of antisocial behaviour in the town centre, which has resulted in changes to the market arrangements, but that is also due to other aspects of what NNC is wanted to entertain. There's some repair work to do in that area, and they're removing the stalls in that area. And I know that both the town council and those NNC councillors have been engaging with the police, looking at solutions to try and sort those matters out. Whilst I represent a rural area, we have a very good relationship with our PSSO in that area. I email and you either get an out of office, please contact such and such, or you get a response, a little while later. What sometimes is a little bit confusing for me is they very kindly provide information about crime stats over a month. It's not always obvious what some of those things are, I hasten to add. And also, as we know, particularly in some of the rural areas, it's to do with people passing through. And also sometimes the facilities that you sometimes have in rural areas, which causes issues with those numbers. And that has been talked about in the past, where we had a couple of incidences where particular drugs have been found on people, and it's because the police had stopped them coming through the village. But of course it came under your stats for that particular village or whatever. So it sometimes blurs things slightly. Again, if we're looking for a police officer to attend a parish council meeting, they will attend. But I think all parish councils realise that it's better for them to be out on the beat, so to speak, doing things, and only to attend meetings where it's really that necessary. One thing that does concern me, and it was a matter that I did actually bring up with the Chief Constable a little while ago, who assured me that they would still take place, was at one time, under the former districts and boroughs, certainly in Wellingborough's case, there was something called JAGs, Joint Action Groups, for rural and town. I used to sit on them, and they were exceedingly useful because it wasn't just the police that you had sitting there. You had officers from the council, you had, in Wellingborough's case, his representative from Greatwell Homes, highways, this, that and the other, and it was amazing what could be sorted out and shared in those meetings with other non-police representatives. I know you currently have, I can't remember what it's called now, Stephen, I'm sorry to say, you've got one coming up, is it next week, I believe it is, where you have representatives from the parish councils attend. I do wonder whether JAGs, they don't happen anymore at all. I mean, I certainly don't get invited as an NNC councillor to those kind of matters. But I just wonder whether there's a different, more productive way of working and going back to how it was. But I can leave those thoughts with you, and obviously for you to discuss with the police constable in due course.
Thank you for that. A couple of comments. You're right, as a consequence of our AMPR rollout, where we doubled the number of cameras, thank you for those that have been on those speed awareness courses. You're right, you can't come in and out of our counter on a major road these days without police identifying. And particularly if we know we're looking for cars. I mean, just that decision alone has meant that, rapists, drug dealers, about 1,000 uninsured cars have been just taken off of the streets. Thank you for the bit about meetings. What I would say, anyone who wants, is to help with police attendance at parishes. If you stick to them at the beginning, I'm not having a go. Those of us who have been to parish council meetings, you know that the agendas can get drawn out a little sometimes when a hobby horse has got on. So if you could, it would be quite helpful to put policing at the start, and then they can come give their briefings and move on. I will take the thing away because I saw particularly in the Wellingborough area some of the real good work that the JAG originally used to do. There is a wider piece of work around, and I'm going to get the analogy wrong, but they've called them CSPs, new CSP.
Community safety partnerships, but then there's also community scrutiny panels.
Thank you. There are community scrutiny panels where they're talking about bringing some of those stuff together. But what that's doing is it's making policing look at its wider partnership engagement. So on the back of that, there is some pieces. And some of you will notice in the last, I won't say 24 hours, but I think I'm going to say 48 hours for safety, there is a new serious violence duty that's been, if you like, laid down by Parliament that essentially puts pressures on councils and partners to work together, and there's an obligation on me to hold those partners to account to make sure they're doing it. And as a consequence of that, there's some quite very helpful work in terms of identifying risk, But one of the things we've been working on now for it seems like a lifetime, but about 18 months, 2 years, is a thing called the observatory, where actually we've put data together from health, from probation, and they're actually putting these resources jointly together. As a consequence of some of that, we've identified some risk in terms of first-time entrance to the criminal justice system, but also some inadvertent pieces where it's actually meant that people can identify risk opportunities to intervene earlier, and that's starting to show some real benefit. I mean, probation, for instance, have actually funded a post in its totality to kind of go in. One of the things that we've identified in conjunction with our health partners is, as a consequence of the snow van, there's been something like a 40% reduction in people attending A&E on a Friday and Saturday night, because actually it's being dealt with there. So actually, as a consequence, they're talking about, can we put a nurse potentially or a paramedic in the area of it to make sure that we kind of assist. So I think one of the things is, and this isn't just from a policing point of view, I suspect some of it as the new councils come into their own and actually start to find their own feet. Partnership working needs to be that one that we all bang on. It's all very incredibly difficult to do, but it's the one that gives us the biggest benefit. And like I said, the serious duty kind of gives us some actual leverage, but I can only commend the partnership working I've seen as a consequence of that today. But I will reflect on some of your other stuff, particularly around that.
So we've got Mrs Shields, Councillor Roberts and Councillor Stratton. So Mrs Shields.
Commissioner, you have mentioned earlier on about your PCSO. You haven't been able to recruit them as much as you wanted. Attached to that, I'm looking at the neighbourhood crime, in particular residential burglary. Now, you stated in your priority that the increase of burglary over a period of 12 months at the end of September has increased by 4% over the last 12 months. Is it your intention that you use PCSO for more visiting area of possibility of increase of burglary? And when do you think you're going to be able to control this situation? Because from what I heard from the Home Office, this kind of crime, residential burglary, was not really taken seriously before, and then you know, a crime is a crime, and the statistic should show really, compared to the previous months, and this year is this, and this is what we are putting into motion to combat this. Because of course, residents in Northamptonshire are concerned about this increase, and what can we do about it? Thank you.
Thank you. There's a couple of pieces in there, so I'll go backwards and work my way through. Burglary was something that Northamptonshire Police took very seriously a number of years ago, and it probably worked when the Thank you. I think with that we're back. There's a very difficult balance in there, because and it's a small thing, and I'm just picking up on it. So PCSOs I've not recruited. I don't personally recruit them. They work for the Chief Constable, and it's about them recruiting. And it's important that kind of operational bit. As some of you know, I've been dissatisfied with the force's performance on retaining and attractive PCSOs. And I physically punish them every year for it. So for every penny that they're under from a PCSO point of view, and I'm sure when you're talking to Mrs King in a minute about from a budget, from a reserves point of view, we take the money back because I don't want them to use it on the to balance their books. So it's a small pedantry point. I don't personally recruit them. I encourage them, and what levers from a governance point of view. And on burglary, that was one of those. I did say to the force, and it was a number of years ago now, probably one of the best decisions we'd made, was I will not be raising the precept unless you guarantee to me that you will visit every victim of burglary. And there was a comment that came back, I won't attribute it to, but they were like, but there's so many. Aha, what are we going to do to do? So they created a dedicated burglary team. Burglary is a particular challenge because actually it's normally a very small number of individuals, and I can map it, such as the level we know. We can tell when someone comes out of prison what happens in terms of our spike rate. But that's also why you asked me about the PCSOs. They are an important part of our neighbourhood. The chief used the term about kind of neighbourhoods, proactive in terms of attitude. We do want them to walk around and be seen, but actually you want more than that. You want them to proactively go and engage with those kids that are causing the antisocial behaviour. You want to go and talk to poor old Mrs. Miggins. It's always Mrs. Miggins, isn't it? You want her to go and talk to her about some of the challenges she's having and all that what I would call soft intelligence that you don't get. No one rings it in and goes, well, do you know what? I've seen something strange happening over there, and I tell you. So actually it becomes a much more virtuous picture, and PCSOs remain a very, very important part for us. Now, it's been challenging because, as you'll know, to balance budgets, I give an example. Lincolnshire has removed all of its PCSOs. And that, I'm not saying that I agree with their decision. I have some understanding of it because I know their financial position. That's why in some ways it's really boring sometimes, and Mrs. Shields, you quite rightly hold us to account from a monetary point of view. That's why our sound money means that we're able to keep and or invest in it and or keep putting them back. But please be assured we want to continue to push in that area. I'm less worried about burglary. I'm probably more worried about kind of theft of these sorts of things. Personal robbery is of more concern for me at this moment in time. And the performance metrics, I think it's time we had one of those deep dives on the numbers, and we can dig into and you can see some of those.
Thank you.
Councillor Roberts.
Well, if you wait long enough, most of what you wanted to say or ask, the questions have already been asked, so I'll be very short. No, it's been fascinating to listen. I'm sure you agree with me. You've said it today that the perception of crime can sometimes outstrip the actual facts. But I think the community has to be listened to, and we have to find a way of actually getting out there and listening to them. And you've said a few things. In Kettering, John Paul was talking about what was happening in Wellingborough. We used to have the local strategic partnership, which we all came together. We are creating community hubs. The police must be front and centre part of that. And it's people. We've got to have more people. I'm very pleased to hear you talk so positively about getting more PCSOs. I think they really did work. They got down to, the police, the coppers, they do a really good job. They're very professional, but PCSOs had time to talk, whether they had it or not. The perception was they had time to talk. So I would say to you, keep up the good work, Commissioner. Let's keep talking to the community, and let's put it on our agenda so that every time we meet, we can say, how many people have we talked to this month, or every so often. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And just on that, and you're right, the big strength, and it's more than that, but actually there are different skills that a PCSO has to a police officer. They're not there to enforce, they're there to engage, to have those conversations, to build relationships. And that's why they also tend to be the ones that what the beat bust to, if you like, in terms of their vehicle to go out there and engage, communicate, but above all, actually listen. One of the things that I'm working on for me at the moment, you mentioned the force does a lot of work on a ward basis on locally identified priorities. So I'm asking for, if you like, for if you like, a map to be shared with others to actually shows what are the public saying to us. So there is a lot of consultation that we go on. So some of you know we are Northampton, what was Northamptonshire Alert is now Northamptonshire Talking, has kind of exploded. We've got something like 40,000 people that sign up to that. That's probably all on the back of Superintendent Hanford, because if you've been to any community events, she's now got QR codes that you have to sign up, otherwise she won't let you out of the room. Is such of a fervour for it. But that's a basis for making sure. In some of the business cases that we're expecting to see, one of them, I'm not inferring that I'm going to approve it, but I think it's a particularly good one, is a communication channel that both receives information from social media and pushed back out to it. So both virtual engagement and also the physical maintains a cornerstone of that public trust from a policing point of view.
Thank you. And now, Councillor Strachan.
Alas, thank you, Chairman. I know we've been flogging the PCSOs to death, Commissioner, but could we, there must be a reason why we are not able, because you've got the money there must be a reason why we are unable to recruit PCSOs. Could you raise that with perhaps whoever it is in the police service that deals with it? Because there must be a reason. There are a lot of people out there who are desperate for work, and it's a good job. It's a rewarding job. It's a friendly sort of a thing where, you know, they meet the people and they talk to them. They have a little chat. You know, and I mean, okay, it's a lot of walking. But certainly, if no disrespect to enforcement officers, if I had an opportunity to take an enforcement job and take a PCSO job, I'll go for the PCSO.
Can I mark you down for recruitment?
Past it, yeah, past it. I suppose geriatric now, I suppose. Right, Commissioner. What I really want to talk about is the money you gave to Spring Family Centre to provide some good work for youths. I think I must say that you know, we're grateful for that, because that's a very deprived area, and the manager at that centre works very hard to bring people of all persuasion in to help. And he's doing some good work, and he needs that support, and we really do appreciate this funding that you passed on for the music and art. So thanks for that.
I answer that one because I'm a favourite of you.
Not quite finished yet. We do have issues with drugs around that area. Somebody pointed out a youngster to me in Tower Street, at the top of Tower Street, around between 2 and 2:30, and they said he was a lookout. Apparently this guy sits there, he sits in a position where the cameras, because we've got cameras from the multi-story car park, as well as we've got cameras, there's a camera, I think, on upper, anyhow, I just can't remember the name of the road at the moment. But anyhow, but the cameras can't pick him up where he sits. And he's a lookout for, obviously, for enforcement officers, police officers, I suppose. So his colleagues could carry on their drug dealing. So it's an area that I would like to see more policing take place there. We also have the problem with drug taking on the underpass at Horse Market.
So, Councillor Strachan, we don't want to get too parochial now. So
you didn't disturb other people.
But
I was watching. I was listening. You didn't stop anybody.
Let it be a lesson for us all then. So if we can.
I'm sorry. But anyhow, I know that you're looking at underpasses and you're blocking off underpasses. So that's one of the areas that I think perhaps we should be looking at, because they do a lot of drug taking under that underpass. Right. I also appreciate for the support that we've had in Kingsley with the police and the drug problems and that officers spent hours and hours coming along and looking at. Finally, I want to raise the issue of retail crime. It's on the increases in a big way. We're having a lot of problems with it, and we would like to know what Northamptonshire Police is doing to support businesses with this. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Strachan. On the retail crime, I just want to interject here. So we had a retail crime summit the week before last, yeah, there's a drive from a number of areas, but happy to take that one offline. But so over to the Commissioner to respond.
Thank you for that. Just for everyone else, and I was humbled on, it was basically Music Against Gangs was a project we did in Spring Boroughs, and actually they invited me, and it was quite humbling actually, to there was a round table in Parliament, and they were providing evidence to it. And one of the ones that even gets me just talking about it, there was a young lad in there who is now involved in the group and working for them, as a consequence of the ACE and SERV, was saved. And I truly mean saved. And so sometimes when you see it firsthand, you're like, you can know it makes a difference. One of the things I'm keen to do with Spring Boroughs, because one of the things that also came up for me there, is the long-term piece. So I'm very keen, and we perhaps take it off here, is what I can do to make sure that we put that on a slightly longer-term footing, because actually it is a deprived area. And the bit I'm going to make a plea for is there is a car park, a damn car park outside. You please know I made a commitment to lobby the council, even if it meant I damn well bought it myself, to enable something to go on it. To see if we could do, because then they could put a sports area, would it be a Muga, or although that comes with its own challenges, I found out, because evidently if you put something like that in it, they dig down, then you're going to need £500,000 for them to look for castle remains or something. So we were looking, it can't be deeper than 4 inches. So we are looking to see what we can do there. On the retail crime front, you're right, we've doing that. I will quickly mention we have the Retail Crime Partnership where we sponsor. It's an independent way of organisations sharing it, and we got a load of businesses round the table to make sure we do it and share. And there'll be some updates on that. I'll make sure that they're shared with you. And as David said, myself and David hosted it after going out, because we actually went to an area and we found literally how different it could be. On one side of the street, and 2 shops that were opposite one another had kind of an epidemic, and over the other one didn't. And I think the other one was actually on the back of, some of it was the size of the fella that was stood in the building, relative in terms of some of the others. But there was a lot of best practice that we shared, and we've got some takeaways to do to make sure that we can improve that.
So I'm mindful of our timings, so I did have Councillor Mercer as a final speaker on this, because we have Councillor Randall, who's sadly was delayed in her arrival, so we will conclude with Councillor Mercer, and then we'll go to Councillor Randall's question, or 3 minutes. So,
just quickly, there's always pressures on the call 999, etc. I've seen other forces have some sort of social media where you can report crimes, and there's actually a manned service where somebody's sitting there on like a chat line. I just wondered whether any work is being done in that area.
We have added some social media capability, or the force has added some social media capability as part of this year's budget setting process. I think I've lost it again. As part of this year's budget processing, I'm expecting a business case around that with some technology to help and give their reach greater. As you're right, in terms of evolution, we're looking beyond just the physical contact to make sure we can take into account the digital. And that will probably come through depending on the business cases that we see. I think we're about 2 weeks away from that, aren't we, folks? On the
We are. Promise papers next week.
Okay.
Okay, if we could invite Councillor Randall. You have 3 minutes. How many times do we hear that, Wendy?
Do I just ask it from here?
If you come up, because it would be to the benefit of any viewers you may have. Thank you, Wendy.
I think it's just this end where it keeps disappearing.
Okay. And I hope this is the right place to ask this question. I've had concerns from members of the public over your recent preferred person to go in the role of as a fire chief, and their concern is about a fire chief, a police chief taking on a fire chief role, understanding that it takes many years to understand all that technical position. And they're worried that we're going to be left with an unsafe Northamptonshire. And as a panel, I just want to be reassured that you are all making sure that you're asking the right questions and really understanding that, because it is a real key role. So that is one thing. Just listening to your questions, if I may, and it's not a question, this is just mentioning this, and I don't know if you do that everywhere else, but in Daventry, our town council, we run a retail radio scheme, so the retailers buy into that scheme. So if there is anything happening with a store or a theft, they put that straight round on the radio. CCTV operators pick that up as well, and that works really well. So that is my question to you. I just want reassurance that you are going to get the right person in the right role and that's going to be able to deliver that effectively. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Randall. So that's basically it. So it's a general approach taken by the Office of the Commissioner on that aspect. And I've witnessed the Daventry Town operation for retail crime, and it's something actually to maybe we'll take the panel around to see the CCTV monitoring things. It's quite something to be proud of.
I don't want to answer a question and cross over because obviously we have a confirmation hearing next week. But I'll if I can, kind of give some reassurance. It is worth highlighting that when obviously the panel and its confirmation hearing next week, so I don't want to presuppose. We did a 2 days worth of interviews. They included a stakeholder panel, which members of your party were on, and I would say there was an absolute endorsement of the person we're putting forward. To give you some reassurance, I think the key piece is the slightly enlarged team. We have as many senior operational firefighters in our organisation when she joins, should you confirm it, as we did for the last 10 years, if that makes sense. So there's not some inherent risk there. I would also probably make some bits around it. This isn't new. Kent has Anne Millington. Hertfordshire has Alex Woodhouse. He's a former police officer as well. And some of you noticed in the same week, Buckinghamshire made the same choice that they went to a deputy. We didn't choose her because it was a police officer. There was a robust process. She has a depth in terms of experience around leadership, and as most of you know, the actual senior firefighter doesn't, ultimately the top one, doesn't go around and put out fires. They're running an organisation. That's probably as much as I can say and reassure you today without going through the whole of the bit, which I expect to be questioned appropriately at next week.
Can I just come up with just a very quick supplement?
You've had your 3 minutes,
right,
Wendy,
okay.
But thank you for coming.
I'm quite happy to have a chat with you outside if you want.
Yeah.
Perfect. So just over to James just to conclude on this agenda item.
So thank you, Chair. So yeah, I mean, there's obviously, having considered the latest version of the delivery update, there's the opportunity for the panel to make any resolutions on it that it wishes, whether that's comments or recommendations, issues where it wants further information, or issues that it might consider as topics for further scrutiny. I mean, the 2 points that I picked up from earlier in the discussion were, there was a suggestion from Councillor McGee, I think originally, that the Ipsos Mori survey work that's been done on the culture and values in Northamptonshire Police, the Fire and Rescue Service and the Commissioner's Office be brought to the panel. And there was also a suggestion from the Commissioner. I think that the panel has a further briefing session on, I think, work being done on around domestic violence and the outcomes that that's producing. That was picking up on some of the points that Mrs. Shields raised. So that's what I took as potential conclusions from the discussion, Chair, but it's obviously the panel's discussion for the panel to say what its resolutions are.
Thank you. We are happy with that. Does that nail it? Yeah. Perfect. Okay, so thank you. Can I just ask? Very briefly.
Yes. Can I just ask something regarding the confirmation hearing on the 6th of December? Will it help the panel to have a pre-hearing session?
There will be a pre-hearing session.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to, are we at agenda item 10? Once again, Commissioner, we invite you to
I have a short introduction. So I might get to the end of this one before my mic bums out. Mr. Chairman, I'll be brief. The report of viewing provides the financial outturn for the Fire and Rescue Service for the financial year 22-23, a high-level forecast financial outturn for 23-24, and an update on the 24-25 with precept and financial outlook. Myself and Mrs. King will be happy to take some questions.
I'm just going to ask a very simple question. Is the underspend because of pressures to cut budget? Or if not, what is it for? And going forward, how much, if any, pressures are there to cut budget?
I'll start this and hope the mic stays on. Thank you. I think we're talking about the current year and not the past year. So as set out in paragraph 8, the underspend this year has been really helped by the extra funding that has come from business rates from our local authority colleagues. Fire gets 1% of North and West Northamptonshire's business rates. And I just want to say a huge thank you to the officers in those organisations who worked their socks off to get us good estimates on that throughout the year. They worked so hard on it that funding receipts this year have been better than expected due to some, I believe, my colleagues might tell me I'm wrong, but I think there were some bad debts that were settled that meant that the position in a one-off basis this year was much better than expected. So that's why there's an underspend this year, Councillor McGee. In terms of next year and moving forwards, the autumn statement didn't give us much information at all last week. We are modelling a number of scenarios locally, and the budget work is ongoing. So I couldn't tell you this early in that part of the process what the settlement is going to look like. We always are actively really vocal to get as much for fire as possible. We do expect that with council tax base increases, that there will be some increase. Whether the increase in funding is as much as the increase in costs, we don't know. So I can't tell you that today, but that's the next couple of months with the budget work and the precept work that will come to you in February of next year when we've got the settlement. Does that give you enough?
I think to just give some reassurance, we are lobbying hard to make sure that we got the discretion, and we don't know around the £5, because as you know, from a funding point of view, we continue to be in the bottom quartile, and as a consequence, we're pushing to that. As a consequence of working across both police and fire, particularly the enabling services, we're trying to make sure if there's any monies that we can save to mitigate against it. But I think the one there is actually no, the underspend is a consequence of good financial management. It's not based on kind of any agenda to give reassurance.
Okay, I've got Councillor Maxwell, Councillor Pritchard and then Mrs Shields.
My question is, I don't know whether it's relevant here, but Kettering police station, which has been left empty for I don't know how many years, is it going forward being sold? And secondly, do you pay council tax on it? As it's empty.
Thank you. Kettering Police Station, we are still actively looking to sell that, and we are at a very crucial stage in some of those discussions, so it wouldn't be right for me to say any more at this particular time. We've been working with our colleagues in the north on that, and we're very much working together because we've got part of the site and our north colleagues have got part of the site as well. It's been a long journey together, but we're working together, and we do very soon hope to have an outcome. Is that okay from me? Did you want to say any more?
I just wanted to ask, are you paying council tax on an empty property?
I'm going to look over at my colleague over in the right here. Oh, do you know that off the top of your head? We will find that one out for you, Councillor Maxwell, and get back to you. If we should be paying it, we'll be paying it. If we shouldn't be paying it, we won't be paying it. So I will check that for you.
But I suppose I want to reassure you there are significant efforts to get it sold. I thank some people in the room for their support in getting it, because someone will know we have had some challenges because it's connected to the court, the heating is all interconnected. It has been the devil's own job to kind of unravel, but I would say Northamptonshire and ourselves are now in a position we are working very closely together, and one hopes that without giving too much away that we might have some positive news in a not too distant future.
Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Chair. Are you anticipating at the year turnout to have a balanced budget?
We will have a balanced budget indeed. We will have a little bit extra. We still expect to have a little extra funding from that, so that will give us opportunities at the year end.
Yeah. And my next question is, what happens to the extra that in fact you don't spend this year?
Well, that is a lovely question.
Shall I start, Commissioner,
yes,
and then you
please.
can chip in? Okay. The Commissioner always speaks, and this applies to both fire and policing. The Commissioner always speaks to each Chief Officer, and if there are carry forward or one-off requests that either Chief wishes to put forward for the Commissioner to consider, you absolutely do. You've always been really positive about ensuring that the money stays in the organisations, and we want to incentivise people to identify underspends when they are there. We don't want to penalise them and ask them to go on a wild spending spree. So we've always been very proactive for both fire and policing to meet any carry forwards with they've requested. And then we have a conversation and we look at the reserve levels. We look at whether we need to pop any sensible reserves, earmarked reserves, or whether the general reserve needs helping out at all. So we start to have those conversations over the last few months of the financial year when the chiefs start to look at whether there's anything they want from the carry forwards.
Yeah. And the very last question is, do you anticipate an increase in the PSEP for next year's budget?
I think you're going to leave that one to me, Mrs. King, aren't you? That's what we're consulting on, is the answer to that question, but I will come back to it. One of the key things has always been for me, look, when the fire service came out of the county council, its budget had gone down every year for 10 years. We can't underestimate what pile of state that left the fire service in. You know, we've replaced 40% of the fleet. You know, our youngest fire engine was something like 15 years old. We actually even had one of our training pumps actually blow up. Thankfully, no one was injured, but it wasn't a one there. You know, it enabled us with financial stability to actually recruit more firefighters, but that alone isn't going to solve all of our challenges. The key bit that we've always wanted to do was to make sure that we wanted to incentivise, because one of the things that we found when they came out of the county council was that given that if they didn't spend money in a year, it would be whisked away. And we understand why. No one's judging anybody for that. I wouldn't want to have to make the decisions around adults, children and the fire service. But because we are a standalone precepting authority, and sometimes they get lost, I might be the police, fire and crime commissioner, but I'm also, and no jokes here, I'm two people. In other words, I'm the fire authority and I'm also the police authority. Who can't speak. The police and fire authority, you have to be, there are very strict rules about mixture of money for obvious reasons. So actually what we want to do is to incentivise, to ensure that if you didn't spend money in a year, it didn't go off into the ether. And that's been a really important message. So actually, if you're frugal with your money, it's going to come back to you, or some of those other things. So that's stopped people from kind of going, I've got to spend it, because it's kind of going to somewhere else. One of the things we do in policing is we ask them every year for a 1% efficiency. What does that mean? They have to identify 1% of their budget that they need to save. And the whole point of that is before they come and ask for new money, they actually have looked across their own things in terms of efficiencies. Given the financial situation across the fire service, that hasn't been something we've been able to do. But we are fast approaching that we will continue to get them to ask and look, how can we do things better? On the, coming back to the precept one, yeah, I'm pretty certain that there will be some form of increase from a precept point of view. And the reason is, you know, there are financial pressures, whilst we're now around kind of inflation, we would be, given how hard we've got to get to this point, I wouldn't be doing my my role right to shortchange them at this crucial moment. So I would say yes, the magnitude of that, I'll listen to the people of Northamptonshire. And I can't guarantee I'm going to, because I've got to listen to what they say. But I'm here to make the right judgments that will keep the people safe.
Are you constrained to the 2.99%? We
don't know. That, I was on a call yesterday, Mrs. King, that gave me a little bit more, but not too much. We are awaiting. It's a complicated situation. I would say no, we're not, because it's actually 1.99, I believe, unless it's 2.99. But there is potentially the latitude to go the flat £5, which we've lobbied hard for, but we don't know whether we've been successful in that place yet. And we will believe, I've been told a provisional settlement of something like 11th or 12th. So next week we may know a little earlier than thinking. I don't know what you know.
That would be great.
Yes.
I did think it could possibly be the case. We are in fire. They usually are tied to the same increases. Thank you. I thought I spoke loud. In fire, we are usually tied to the same increases as local government, unless there is a separate flat settlement. I say local government without the social care increase. Yeah. So we're doing all we can. Stephen, as you can hear, is lobbying and talking through his routes. I also have a similar route with the Home Office Head of Fire Finance as well, who I meet with regularly and keep pushing Northamptonshire's case at every opportunity, because it's really important that we do the best for Northamptonshire that we can.
Lovely. And final speaker, Mrs. Shields.
My question is to do with the unavoidable cost for engineering, store and estate pressure. Is it a case that this is just a one-off for these years? And I know that you've stated that this additional funding from business rate will be used to meet this cost. And if you cannot, it will be from contained in the envelope. Now, is it because of the arrangement you have currently, and would the situation change next year, for instance? Thank you.
In terms of, I'll do next year first, if I may. So in terms of every year, we zero base every single year. So we review all our budget needs and requirements at a zero base level every single year. So we will be looking at what's required in estates, and we will be looking at what's required in engineering and stores for the 24-25 budgets. Vaughan and I have actually got a meeting on Friday, I think, isn't it, to look through the first draft sets of information on that and see what those requirements are from the departmental heads. In terms of this year, yes, we do expect particularly a lot on engineering and stores to be one-off. I say because some of those additional costs are related to maintenance costs on vehicles, and we know that we've got some new vehicles put in next year's capital programme. We've got some of those vehicles that are really, really old and are spending a lot of time and costing an awful lot of money on maintenance. So we're delighted that they're in the capital programme next year, and that shouldn't, that should go away. The zero-based budget review will tell us if there's something else that's taken its place, and we'll make sure that we build that in there. In terms of estates, similarly, we've tried to put in as much work on the estates as possible. We've had condition surveys on all of the estates, and in this particular year we've had a bit of unlucky situations with things like boilers and a few other things like that again we hope are one-off, but again that will get picked up in the zero-base budget review.
Thank you very much.
And I think just adding, there's been investment since then where, there's no politer way of putting it. Some of the conditions that we're asking our fire officers to sleep in were less than optimal. We found when we did the original condition surveys, it allowed us to get on the front foot around asbestos because it was still in there, and also things like the whatever the thing all the schools had a problem with, rack. Yes, we found those early as a consequence of some of those, but also investment's been made to make sure that we are also better able to have, if you like, more appropriate gender accommodation on our buildings in terms of shower facilities and those sorts of things, something that wasn't there before. So in addition to that, I'll say there has been investment in that space, but yes, we continue to get caught out potentially on some of those when you've got ones kind of that old. But also we will be coming forth with plans potentially to build several new police and fire stations in the county, but we'll wait and see what that looks like when we come and put all of our financial plans together.
Thank you.
So final speaker, and I'm mindful of timings, so Councillor Roberts.
Well, in a sentence, Ceci, I congratulate you on this, because balancing a budget with windfall is one thing, but actually challenging your organisation to find some savings. And with some of the things that we were talking about earlier that are really necessary, like extra PCSOs, equipment, we fell a long way behind on some of these things. Training, I think, is really good that you give them the opportunity to save the money and spend the money. You're listening, and that's important. Thank you for that.
And I think that's one of the ones, actually, one of the things we're very keen to do as we look, particularly we're on fire. Some of the investment proposals are particularly around, yes, there's the not the shiny vehicles and stuff like that. One of the things we want to make sure we're doing is putting funding to make sure we develop our people. At the end of the day, I don't think we've done... The fire service and police to a certain degree have been very good at what I would call operational skills, in other words, those things. If anything, it's some of those softer skills that require, management, some of the stuff we've talked a bit about, culture, but actually making sure that we invest and develop our people is a kind of a key cornerstone for us to make sure that we're fit for the future.
Thank you for that. So we will note that, and moving swiftly on to agenda item 11. So again, Stephen, back to you.
Thank you. Mr Chairman, like the last report, this provides you with the financial earned term for policing for the financial year 22-23, a high-level forecast financial outturn for 23-24, I'm getting my 20s messed up there, and an update on the 24-25 precept and financial outlook. I'd like to say, as this is the opportunity, this is the last report, which I'm very sad about, Helen, she will make to the panel. For the last 6 years, Helen has provided me with an immense amount of support, advice and wise counsel. We can't look at each other at this moment, thank you, forgive me. No matter what the challenge or problem is, Helen has always been positive, pragmatic. Sometimes we've both been stubborn and argumentative with one another, but that can-do attitude to help provide the foundations on which we've been able to deliver a truly innovative work. A very valuable member of our team, and I know that she will be missed. Replacing someone like Helen is never easy, and it's testament to her skills and abilities she has made that even more bloody difficult. So on behalf of all of us here, I'd like to wish Helen all the best for the future. Thank you on behalf of the county for all the work she's undertaken to help turn around and improve the fire and rescue service, all the investments and improvement we've been able to make to the policing in Northamptonshire, and I think you can be very proud of what you've helped to deliver our county, and I'm sure your legacy of work will continue for many years to come. So, she doesn't like the praise.
I think the panel would like.
Questions, because that's what you'll probably prefer to do.
Could we? But I just want to say thank you, Steve. I've loved working with you. You know I have. Panel, I've really enjoyed working with you for all of these 6 years. Thank you very much. Please ask me lots of difficult questions.
Yes. I think the panel would like to put on record our great thanks as well. So thank you very much, Helen. So sorry. So back to business. So I've got 2 speakers. Councillor Mercer, followed by Councillor Gonzalez de Savage.
Thank you, and yes, I echo those words. Thank you so much. I'm just asking about really the early intervention youth provision, that you have staff vacancies. I was just wondering the sort of extent of that, and if it was having an impact on that area. And the second question is about the joint commercial, it's the commercial frameworks, item 20, really, 2021, where it says that has generated income, and I can't quite understand what that is doing, how it's working.
You can have the joy, I'll add a little.
Okay, thank you. I will start off. In terms of the early intervention, yes, we have had some staff vacancies this year. We have recruited now to all but 5, so we're down to 5 because Stephen and I met with the head of that budget area, and David, we met with the head of that budget area this week, and we were looking at their plans ready for next year and talking through those. There are definitely plans in place to fill at least 3 of those 5 posts. So
I think that's a bit I kind of want to add. You know, the pressure that we apply to everybody goes across the whole of the organisation. So actually they have coped without the 5. Do they really need them? We haven't finalised the budget yet, but as Helen said there, we've actually said, you know what, we think the optimum number is probably 3, so if there's a small saving that we can make there in terms of service, then we would do that. And it is a worth mentioning. These are additional; they're not thing. We put them in there in terms of before. Doesn't mean we're but we're always looking to make sure that this thing works. Always making sure we do it, and you know how committed I am to EI. Sorry, Mrs. Scott.
There we go. I think it's happening to me again now. So yes, that we have had quite a number of vacancies, and Jackie, the head of that team, has been actively recruiting throughout the year. So we might not have all of those people on seats just yet because the vetting process takes a little bit of time, but she has been really proactive and moving forward on that recruitment. in terms of the frameworks, I'll start if that's okay. I'm sure the Commissioner would like to chip in on this one. So how the income works, Councillor Mercer, is we set up procurement frameworks for areas that we want to buy things from. So it's based on our needs, things we need, and we know that we need to do procurement on. If we set up a framework, we can get 1% if anybody else uses that framework for their contracts. We do get 1% of that, so that's how it generates some income. So it's twofold, and it's very positive. We're setting them up to generate good value for money and good procurement for us, but we're also, in doing so, we're opening the framework so that other public sector organisations can use them, and we do and have good value for money, and we have a small amount of income from that source. So it's been very positive.
So can I just ask, it says Northamptonshire and Nottinghamshire, so it's just the two, is it? You aren't, because a lot of the other collaborations have been a bit further than that.
The original collaboration was between the Labour PCC for Nottingham and the Conservative PFCC in Northamptonshire. Funny enough, on that particular subject, I had a better relationship with my Labour colleague because my new Conservative one came in and they said they didn't want to carry on with it, which actually in the long run will be great for us, because actually we've retained the majority of that team and it has become an income generator for us. I think it's not unfair to say, as you said, something like 1 million, that's £1 million worth of extra profit. That's extra thing that has come into the county. As of next year, I think we'll be in with the new frameworks, and please read the news tomorrow. We will have an exciting one to work with local businesses on the property front. I can't say any more because otherwise someone on the other end of the phone is going to shout at me. But actually to encourage local businesses to participate in something here in Northamptonshire. I think we're expecting income going forward in the. I'll be conservative. 400,000. Can I be? Can I? Or could I go a bit further? Is that?
On the high side.
Oh, okay, right then. Okay.
I'm being a bit prudent.
You're being a bit more prudent. Our track record says that it'll be around that kind of ones, but actually that is additional income, and that goes to both fund the team and save money. So you're not only generating extra profit for Northamptonshire, you're also saving public sector generally money by setting up these frameworks and making it easier for people to trade with us.
Thank you. Andre.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question, if I may, Mrs. King, and obviously we do wish you the very best in your next challenge. You're far too young to retire, don't even get any thoughts about that. Talk to me about reserves, because clearly there are lots of lines here that indicate the budget transfer to reserves from all areas here. What are the reserves, out of interest, the earmarked reserves and the general reserves? And can you reassure us that the Commissioner is passing on every penny of the £5 and the £15 to both police and fire, respectively, over the years to ensure that they really do get the benefit of that? My concerns, and I have to say as a member of the public as well as a member of councils, representing different people, is that to go back out and ask members, and this is not a question to yourself, Mrs. King, but a question in general, to go back out and ask members of the public to contribute more in terms of an increase to the Office of the Police and Fire Crime Commissioner without seeing substantial increase in delivery would be something that people are very concerned about. And a question to the Commissioner, if I may, Mr. Chairman, in terms of clearly he's been putting an awful lot of pressure, and he says physical pressure, to the police and to fire in terms of clearly the underspends, if they have any, or any areas in their budgets, is how much of his own office has he been able to save over the year, and has he been able to model that he can clearly cut 1% in the same line? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll start. I'm sure the Commissioner would like to come in to my left in a moment. I'm delighted to say that Mrs Shields has asked me a question on reserves already this week. Thank you very much, Mrs Shields. So I do have those figures to hand. And I've also sent Mrs Shields a breakdown of all of the reserves in the Statement of Accounts on Fire and Police. And if you wish, Chair, I'd be very happy to share that with members. It's in the public domain, it's in the public accounts. I think I've pressed send, Mrs Shields.
Yes, it is. I must say, Helen, you will be very much missed, especially because I've interacted over the year with you and you've always been so clear, so transparent about whatever I ask. And this spreadsheet, Mr. Gonzalez, you will find very explanatory, clear, transparent, because not only you have a spreadsheet, but you have comments that explain all the in and out.
Thank you, Mrs Shields. The promise is that I will circulate that one and the extra one that I've just sent you.
That's right, yeah.
Mrs Shields. So in terms of police, okay, we at the end of the financial year we held a reserve of 5 million. We just increased that on general reserves to 5.3 million. So that is still consistent with our guideline level within the reserve strategy that the panel see every single February. Okay, so it's above SIPFA's minimum guideline, and we think that's a real reasonable figure. In terms of specific reserves, thank you. In terms of specific reserves, at the end of the financial year, we had 18.96 million specific reserves, and they cover a range. I will send the full list because there's quite a nice little selection in there. There's quite a range in there. So, for example, we have an insurance reserve of 3.7 million, which is set by the insurers as a level that we should have. We really cannot go lower than that, otherwise we will rightly be criticised by the external auditors for having insufficient funds available to meet those should they be required. We also have, if I just pick a few out here, we also have the Commissioner's Initiatives Fund, which I don't want to be a spoiler, but he has already highlighted some of those areas that he wishes to support in next year's budget with those. So I won't be a spoiler and say what they are, Commissioner. No, not today. We've also had the opportunity to put the additional Home Office funding that we've had over the 2 years. We've had over £2 million over 2 years for the good work that we've done on the uplift. And so we've put that into the neighbourhood reserve, and we will use that to keep police officer levels up for as long as possible. That's been the subject to the settlement. So there are a few of them in there. Since I've been here, we have not increased the precept just to put money in reserves. That is my understanding. So that has not been the case. The precept has not been increased to put it in reserves. Whenever the precept has been increased, it has been to put on frontline delivery. Did I cover all of your bits, or did I miss a key bit for you?
No, that was helpful. I think the Commissioner, I'd certainly have a question about trying to be efficient in his office area. But in terms of page 136 and 137, there are transfers to general reserves of 300 on budget heading on 6, basically on item 6, and on item 12 as a budget transfer to reserves of, well, we've got various different columns there, but elements obviously in terms of the breakdown very helpful to know. What are the recommended reserves? You said we're above, or you're above SIPFA. What are your recommended reserves?
Okay.
It's always a good debate.
Yeah, it's always a very good debate, because SIPFA will say it's for the Section 151 officer to take a view based on the individual circumstances. And you'll see in the panel papers every February, I personally have taken a different view for fire as I have for police general reserves. So SIPFA and the external auditors give a minimum level of 2%. I like to use in policing a guideline level of 3%, because there are things that do come up, there are incidents that do come up. If there is something that happens in fire or policing, then locally the force is required to meet quite a chunk of that money before it can call on the government for their funds. So it's essential that we have that set aside. We are on policing. on the lower half of the reserves held nationally. The Home Office publish their reserves and they look at all of the policing and the fire reserves to make sure nobody's too high or too low. And then, okay,
so just asking monetary terms,
yes.
just for those of us who have obviously scope of council budgets, etc., you're talking 2% is a SIPFA recommendation on the revenue.
Oh yeah, so it's 2% of the revenue budget. So
Lovely.
the SIPFA minimum, if you like, is 3.372 million.
Okay.
Councillor,
I think it's me actually. Yeah. I think there's a couple of bits I want to, and it's relevant to our other bit. One of the things we've also gone out of our way, and I think it's important to answer that key question: have we ever raised to put money in the bank? No. Have we made sure that we've put decent financial viability of both organisations at the forefront of the decision made? Absolutely. One of the things that's been on that basis is also to make sure, particularly on sale of short term and some of the small stuff, that we've tried to make sure that we can avoid borrowing. So actually, you know, some of my colleagues have got, what was they've got some of these public borrowing, what I can't think of what the word is off the top of yeah, No, I was actually thinking some of them actually they don't even own their buildings, they don't even own their police station. Thank you. So we've not done anything like that. So all of the buildings are ours, even the ones we'd like to sell, like Kettering, and we have disposed of Corby, and I think someone's going in somewhere else. You are. Be patient. I know it's coming. Feels like Christmas has been coming forever, that one, hasn't it? So we've been it, but also, you know, I give an example. Both police and fire control room need investment both from a systems point of view and also from a buildings point of view. You know, we've given them little makeover. You take the fire one, it's in a building at the back of a fire station, you know it more than most in terms of Daventry. The houses behind it, for instance, all of the sewage goes underneath the control room. If it backs up anywhere, it's under the control room. So we've also putting money aside from a, if you like, from a future point of view to make sure that we've got kind of the right kit. We haven't built a police station or a fire station for quite some number of years. So we need to build on that, and some quite serious strategy work has been going on our estates that will come to fruition towards the end of January. You will notice in terms of underspends year on year, the largest underspends in percentage terms have tended to be from my office. And that's been every year because we continue to do it. We also are always looking for new ways to do it. As some of you may not know, remain very committed to making sure we provide the top victim service. So Voice was something we conceived of a number of years ago. It was a standalone company. Might not seem like a lot, but a couple of, there's certainly savings we brought from bringing it in-house and also in terms of closer working. EI is one of the things most closest to my heart, but it doesn't mean they can escape financial accountability. So if we can save something by not recruiting those two and deliver still a better service, then yes. So we're actually looking, and actually I would commend, I know they get a bad rap, but the Children's Trust is actually getting better and better, and so our ability to work with them is better. But when I started, I set a goal that the core office should not be more than 1%. Now you think, and it's not a criticism, you think how much a council's governance and all that cost and how much gets past it. I set a target that it should never be more than 1% of the money we administer. And we continue to push it down. Doesn't sound like a lot, it's now 0.7%. Now, one of the challenges I set for the commercial team, I wanted them to generate enough money that the core accountability of the office doesn't cost anything. And that's the ambition that they're working to. So that every penny that gets raised gets to frontline policing or firefighters. We're not quite there yet. Now, of course, on top of it, it's very easy if you look at the kind of the 6 million, contains capital financing. It also contains some of the stuff that we then contract out or we use in terms of some of those bits. So you'll notice we deliberately spin out core office and also the direct delivery of services, because you don't want to create an environment, whoever sits here as a commissioner, that goes, do you know what, because I could save you 2.5 million tomorrow. I could kill everything that relates to early intervention. over my dead body is that going to happen. But those are the kind of choices we've got. But we continue to make sure that we push it down. Now, if we can get it 0.5% and I can get the commercial income up, that's where I'd like to end up.
Can I just add one little point? Every year in the council tax leaflet and the panel report, we try and highlight the share the Commissioner has and the share that he allocates to the Chief Constable. And I think every year you've just managed to increase it rather than reduce it. So you've just managed to increase that share.
Okay, we are now running behind, so we're going to have to get some pace into this because we've obviously got the confirmation hearing to follow, and West Northamptonshire councillors have a 5 o'clock full council meeting. If we can speak fast, answer fast, that would be useful. Apologies to everybody, but we have a timetable to try and sit to. So I've got Councillor Maxwell, followed by Councillor McGee, Pritchard, and then Mrs Shields. But please, I don't want to cut you short, but you will get cut short if we're going to run over. Thank you.
Just 2 questions. How many police people do we have actually employed now?
Police people or police officers?
Police officers, then.
We agreed we're 1,530 something. I'm looking at Vaughan. I've had numbers from 32, 37, but it's that kind of. Yeah.
And my second question.
Yes.
Quickly, is do you spend any money recruiting, or not recruiting, using specialists that you don't have in the county?
There are always specialist services. So in breaking down the budget, one of the things we do is, some of you will notice there's a budget head, it's called MSU. It's basically, it is the, if you like, it's where we combine our specialist capabilities, particularly murder, particularly our paedophile online team, our kidnap team. There are some specialists that are in there, and thankfully no one force has murders all at the same time. So actually we pool our resources, which is a very efficient use of it. There are very robust conversations with them about making sure they have the paying in terms of some of the stuff, and some capability, and I use an example. So dogs and roads policing used to be in there. It wasn't an efficient service for us. You never had any dogs, whereas these days you've got like 15 patrolling and you can't go on social media for telling you what sort of ones have gone there. PD Rosie, in terms of digital media, I could bore you to death on that. But yes we do, but it's provided by policing. There are some small bits that we would spend in terms of, I don't know what you're getting at. Do you mean divers or something in Lancashire or anything like that? I don't know.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McGee.
Thank you, Chair. Just quickly, just a clarification. The team that can do without the 2 people being recruited, what specific roles are they? And those 3 roles that have just been recruited, specifically, what do they do?
It's a mixture of ACE workers and youth workers.
Councillor Pritchard.
Very quickly, Chair. May I first of all thank Helen for everything that she's been, particularly the way that she's actually portrayed some of the financial statistics in a very simplistic way that I can understand. So, and the next question is with regards to when you look at balanced budgets, you've already answered that question, but how much are you actually going to be in surplus at the end of the year? And secondly, have you considered things like blue light centres for the future?
In total, we think that we are going to have, and Vaughan might screen at me from the right, no, Helen, you picked the wrong, about 1.3 million under, at the end of this year, on 169 million almost. So that's at this moment in time. We've set out in the report, oh no, I'm sorry, I just looked at paragraph 6, I didn't look at this one. Sorry, I looked at my last year, not this year. Please ignore me. 913,000 at this moment in time. I do apologise, I looked at the wrong table. And again, we would look to consider what we do with it and how, and that would be the conversations with Stephen and to the two chiefs Blue light centres, I'll leave that to the Commissioner.
Thanks. Two parts of that. And some of that, because of how it nets out, some of this is as a consequence of the extra income as well as efficiency. So it's not that they've underspent by $1 million and we just over forecast. It's actually they've done such a good job that, like I said, we were able to get some money, if you like, for the Mets recruitment. Yes, I'm very keen to see what we can do to share buildings and that. If anything, that will become clearer when we come out with our estates blueprint in the new year.
Okay. Thank you. And finally, Mrs. Shields.
Yes, Helen, the planned capital expenditure on fire, as you have indicated, is earmark reserve have been reduced by 1.5 million. What are those exactly, those capital, those planned capital expenditure? You know, top of your head, if you remember.
Top of my head, I'll try. So we try and use funding on shorter life capital assets wherever it's appropriate or possible to do so. So we're talking about last financial year, aren't we? Because the grant went down. As Stephen highlighted earlier, we did quite a lot of investment on systems and systems and IT systems. They're things that we would class as shorter life capital assets. We try and minimise the capital financing costs on the revenue budget wherever possible. So if we can fund shorter life assets by such ways rather than borrowing, that's what we would rather do where we can. But that is off of the top of my head. We did have quite an extensive capital programme last year with vehicles and other things in, but we also had those IT costs also.
Thank you, Helen.
And just on that, it is worth highlighting, you know, we've spent something like £10 million worth of capital on the fire service in the last 4 years. And that's a mixture of, like I say, buildings, technology, fire engines. We have now put in place every back office system that there was when the fire service came over has been replaced or will be replaced or updated. So actually making sure, you know, sometimes you talk about things like Rappel, CFMIS, some of the stuff that we actually using. You think about it, the fire service came over with 5 people in technology. As a consequence of working fire, there's well over 100 people in the digital team. So in terms of that capability and shared is a benefit to both and that shared knowledge.
Okay, lovely. Thank you for that. So we note that report. Sorry, we're really zigging through this now. So agenda item 12. So James, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the standard report that comes to every panel meeting to enable the panel to review its work programme as it stands, to look at what's in there, what might be in there, what should no longer be in there, to ensure that it reflects the panel's statutory functions and enable it to carry out the things it must do and use its collective resources to best effect. So to highlight a couple of specific points relating to this work programme, the overall work programme is obviously Appendix A, page 147 onwards. That includes both scheduled areas of work, but also some topics where the panel has said it wants to look at, but hasn't put them to a particular time yet. And of course, there was a couple of additions to that earlier in today's meeting. Then to refer panel members specifically to page 145, paragraph 6.3, 6.4, what they are raising is the need for the panel to consider essentially what it wants to do now about the scrutiny work on early intervention activity that it started earlier in 2023, but has basically had to be put into abeyance in recent months while the panel's focused obviously on matters relating to and arising from the appointment of an interim chief fire officer. So I think there is a need there for the panel to take a view about what it now wants to do about that work that was started and made some initial progress, but didn't get any further than that. And then a second specific issue is the date of the final regular panel meeting in 23-24. schedule of panel meetings that was presented to the panel in February and unfortunately included a date which it shouldn't have, which was within the pre-election period for the commissioner elections next year. So there's a need for the panel to set a new date for its last meeting in 23-24. 14th of March 24 is suggested based on the North and West Council meeting calendars, but it's open for the panel to take a different view if it thinks there is an alternative date that would work better, provided that it is not on or after the 26th of March 2024. So report presents the regular work programme, asks the panel to take a view on the early intervention scrutiny work and to take a view about the date of the final regular panel meeting in 23-24. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Mercer?
Yeah, that date, as you've said there in 6.7, the morning is an executive meeting at Northamptonshire Council. That starts at 10, possibly finishes about 12. To get from Corby to Northampton in half an hour, I think you'd have to fly, so that could be a problem. Okay, so that was my. I would suggest I've looked at the calendar and I thought possibly the 21st, given that you do have a council meeting that day, but you do as well today. So. You know, it is possible to fit those in because you are actually in the same place. Just a couple of other things on the future things, as I should be going on to that. We had said we might do some visits at some point, so I don't know if there's anything that perhaps the Commissioner might like to suggest that we want to visit, or events that are going on, or openings or whatever. The other conference panels some of them produce an annual report. I don't know if we need to do that, but that's a possibility. They've also said that we really ought to ask the question about how much of our Home Office grant we use, and I thought possibly we might get a report back at the end of the year on that. James, did you hear that?
Sorry.
Report on the Home Office, how much we spent, possibly at the end of the year, you know, maybe
on the grant, the grant
the
funding.
Home Office grant, yeah. Finally, we obviously have to start the recruitment of independent cooperative members. And I don't know quite what you had envisaged, but I think we have to keep away from the election time probably, so might need to start that a little earlier because it's the election year.
Okay, just on the so the date for the for that your 14th, I think the 21st would be better. I think we. So do you not think we can? I mean, we're stuck between a rock and a hard place if we're not careful. It's.
I mean, through you, Chair, those suggestions were to use the panel's standard meeting day and time. If neither the 21st or the 14th work, then it would. There are 4 other days in the week.
Okay. Yeah. So we're going to look at the 4 other days then, yeah.
That's a Monday.
Okay. Good. Okay. And I will get to you, Councillor McGee. On the early interventions, I mean, and I know you're keen, very passion on this. So across to the panel, really, just thinking on this, but we do need to get, we need to get a decision on what we're going to do, and that clock is constantly ticking. I need to put blinkers on so I can't see it.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep it quick then. To be honest, I found that I chaired a scrutiny panel before, and I actually chaired it really well, and it was very effective, and we got great cross-party work, and we got great results. What's been done with it now is a different thing, but we got great results and it was great working. That scrutiny panel was a nightmare to chair because the response rate to try and get information back was so long. The responses that we got were so vague. We asked really direct, helpful questions, and the responses that we got were just not up to par. Like, there was nothing to go on. I'm happy to pick it up again. In fact, I'd love nothing more than to pick it up again because it's so important. But if we're going to do that, and I'm looking to you really now, David, as the person that can help us with that, if we ask a question and we want data and we want partners and we want results, I really need it in clear, simple, as much as you can give me, because what we were getting previously was leaving us with nothing to work with. So if we are going to continue that, which I'd be happy to do, obviously it's up to the rest of the panel, if we're going to ask questions, I need as much as you can give me back.
I can commit that certainly the OPFCC will provide you with the detailed information that you're looking for. If it's information from partners, we can work with you to get that data.
Okay, so based on that, so is it the feeling of the panel that we want to continue with that piece of work, we just need to square it off as to how we're going to do that, yes?
Yes.
And so to you, James.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So can I suggest we have further conversations following this meeting with a view to bringing something back to the panel meeting in February saying this is the new timescale for finishing it, this is who's going to be involved, this is what we need. Because, I mean, practically it's not a good time of year to be trying to move forward with the work between now and February anyway, given that everybody's focus, the Commissioner's office and councillors are going to be on budget setting. So I don't know you necessarily lose anything time-wise in saying start it off again from February, and that would also enable clarity and any discussion needed about, well, what information, who provides it, how do we get it.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're agreed on that, yes?
Yeah.
Perfect, okay.
You haven't agreed on the dates of the meeting?
No.
Well, so the dates of the other 4 days we have.
We'll need to sort that out between panel meetings, Chair.
Sorry, James. Mr. Chairman, can the time be changed on the 14th to accommodate Northampton executive meeting? So could it be a later start?
There's no reason not to push it back, I don't think.
The exec meeting finishes about...
On the 14th?
Yes.
On the 14th. Probably finish, actually finish. You'd have to fly over here. Well, we normally finish by 2. 2. Yeah, we'd finish about 1 and then we'd have to go over here with 2.
So a 2 o'clock start?
Yeah.
Is that acceptable to everybody?
Seems reasonable. Yeah. 2 o'clock on the 14th.
Or should we be generous and say 2:15 just to allow for comfort breaks and things? So it's so we say 2:15 then, yes?
Yeah, that sounds all right.
Yep. Okay. So we are at item number, where are we? 13. Complaints and matters update. So to you, James.
Thank you, Chair. Again, this is the update report that comes every 6 months to give the panel an overview of the operation of the complaints function. It covers a slightly longer period this time because this report would normally have come to the panel in September. There have been 2 complaints received and dealt with during this period as set out in the appendix to the report. There are no other outstanding complaints or conduct matters. Happy to take any questions, Chair, with the emphasis that it's not intended to be an opportunity to discuss complaints in detail, but discuss the detail of specific complaints, but the operation of the process.
Councillor McGee.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to kind of share with everyone that I was approached by a member of the public who shared with me that complaints meeting lasted 7 minutes. And the agenda was just very done and dusted. I'd like to put to the panel whether that actually happened.
I was chairing the meeting.
Do you want to pop your microphone on, Ken?
I was actually chairing the meeting and we actually lasted longer than 7 minutes because in fact there was input into it and at the end of it there was so much of the contents that we discussed that was covered by the previous days.
Okay. No more. So I think that unbelievably concludes this afternoon's panel meeting. So, so I thank you all for getting us sort of just through the door, almost on time. So good to see you all. So we'll take 5 minutes and then